American Comics. I become the world pioneer at the beginning. Chapter 1. Under the light reflected by the computer, the young man had meticulously groomed dark, fragmented hair, eyes as black as if they could swallow souls, and a chiseled face, making him quite handsome. The young man's name was Chen Mo, 25 years old this year, an ordinary clerk in a machinery factory, living a monotonous life. Apart from occasional disappointment with life and a desire for some change, he didn't have any grand ideals. He just liked to read novels, watch movies and TV shows after work, and occasionally play games, making him a typical slacker office worker. The plot of Heroes is pretty good, no worse than The Flash or Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Chen Mo smiled slightly and continued to watch the American drama with great interest. Speaking of which, the worldview of the American drama, Heroes, is no worse than Marvel's X-Men. Both feature gifted super-powered individuals and missions to save the world, which kept Chen Mo thoroughly entertained. However, upon seeing the villain Arthur Perry resurrected in the third season, a window suddenly popped up on the computer, displaying surprising information to Chen Mo. Detection shows the host meets binding conditions. The Myriad Worlds system is beginning soul binding. When the host arrives in the new world, he will understand the meaning of life and how to truly live. Space-time tunnel opening. Countdown begins. 5, 4. Could it be a virus? Chen Mo stared at the screen that appeared before him, slightly stunned, and quickly unplugged the power. To his surprise, however, the pop-up window remained. Instantly, as the countdown ended, a white light broke through the plane's barrier, pulling Chen Mo towards the vibrant Myriad Worlds. Ding. Welcome, host, to the American Comics Great World. Ding. Host's current identity is Chinese-American, Morpheus Chen Mo, one of Cybertron Company's shareholders. Memory infusion of this world's counterpart has begun. Ding. The current timeline is 9 months after the Central City Particle Accelerator explosion. Ding. Reward host with a primary storage space 10 cubic meters of space. Ding. In 1 week, the Predator world will open. Please prepare, host. Chen Mo's consciousness seemed to be immersed in darkness, while another person's memories appeared in his mind, and emotionless mechanical sounds echoed in his ears. Finally, after recovering some consciousness, Chen Mo suddenly opened his eyes and found himself lying on a hospital bed, with an EEG cap on his head. Then, Chen Mo observed his surroundings and discovered the New York City Central Hospital sign, and even saw white doctors coming and going at the door. Faced with such an unfamiliar environment, Chen Mo didn't think this was a prank. At the very least, no one could send him abroad in a few minutes. Another point was that memories of another life appeared in his mind, as if he had personally experienced them, which made Chen Mo wonder if what the system said was true. However, since he was here, he would make the best of it. Since he appeared in this world, he would live well and seek the ultimate answer. At this moment, the 3 people at the door immediately rushed over upon seeing Chen Mo awaken. Thank goodness, Morpheus, you're finally awake. A black man walked over to Chen Mo and asked with concern. Chen Mo nodded slightly to the black man, Miles Dyson, with no intention of conversing. Through the memories infused by the system, Chen Mo knew that Miles Dyson before him was the future father of Skynet Terminator. As for the other 2, based on Chen Mo's observation, they were clearly the main characters of the American drama The Flash. Of course, Chen Mo also knew his current physical state, so he could only choose to wait and see. Excuse me, Mr. Miles, could you let me have a good talk with Morpheus? Suddenly, Harrison Wells, who looked gentle in his wheelchair, sincerely said to Miles. HMPH. 1 minute, I imagine Morpheus certainly doesn't want to talk to someone like you. Miles said discontentedly, then turned and disappeared from the hospital room. Okay, no problem. Cisco Ramon was quick to respond to Miles. Then, after Miles disappeared, Dr. Wells and Cisco stepped forward, seemingly wanting to say something to Chen Mo. Drive Wells, I remember you. Cybertron Company once provided you with funding. Chen Mo patted his head and, according to his memories, strangely inquired of Dr. Wells. That's right, we came here this time to check on your physical condition. And also, some issues caused by the particle accelerator's dark matter. Dr. Wells slowly began to explain to Chen Mo. And dark matter's contact with the human body causes unknown changes. Recently, we've discovered the existence of meta-humans who can manipulate weather, and even speedsters with super speed. Cisco pondered for a moment and added, sorry, I'm still a patient right now. We can discuss this issue later. Chen Mo refused Cisco and Dr. Wells. All right then, if you notice any strange changes in your body, you can always find us. Dr. Wells merely nodded helplessly in response to Chen Mo's refusal. Phew, what a hassle, I just transmigrated and already encountered reverse flash. Chen Mo looked at the backs of the two STAR Labs personnel and said with a bitter smile. Actually, Dr. Wells and Cisco came over this time to investigate potential metahumans, but Cisco was unaware that Dr. Wells was the one orchestrating everything. Because Central City had been somewhat chaotic recently, especially with the appearance of the Flash Barry Allen and Weather Wizard, STAR Labs began a thorough investigation and search for potential metahumans. Over the next 3 days, Chen Mo slowly recovered his body while learning about this world through the internet. The dispute between superhero Hancock and Superman of Metropolis caused multiple traffic accidents yesterday. Cybertron Company launched the Skynet Artificial Intelligence project today. A new batch of superheroes has been born. Green Lantern, Flash, Supergirl, Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman. Traces of vampires have appeared in California. Batman of Gotham City is still investigating. Arthur Perry, founder of Hearst Corporation, fell seriously ill yesterday. Chen Mo looked at the information he had gathered over the past few days, and a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He began to worry about the future. Based on the currently known clues, the 600th world, the American drama, Heroes, the movie, Terminator, and other worlds collectively form a grand American comics great world, with the timeline being 2007. Moreover, it's uncertain if other worlds have merged into it. Overall, the danger level of this world is at least SSS rank or higher. Another point is that Chen Mo's original body had transformed into raw energy particles during the transmigration process. The body he now possessed was merely the fusion of his original body, after turning into energy particles, with this parallel world's counterpart. New York City, Cybertron Company headquarters, an underground laboratory. This is a secret laboratory of Cybertron Company, specializing in the research and development of T-Series robots, which are the future Terminators. As one of the shareholders of Cybertron Company, Chen Mo was also the person in charge of this area, but due to the particle accelerator explosion, Miles's people took over here for 9 months. Because his previous self had connections with STAR Labs in Central City, he was invited as an investor to witness the historic moment on the day of the particle accelerator explosion. The result, needless to say, was that on the day of the particle accelerator explosion, he was struck by a blue lightning bolt and fell into a coma for 9 months, just like the Flash Barry Allen, before finally waking up. However, Chen Mo knew that as long as one was hit by the dark matter from the particle accelerator, they would 100% gain superpowers. The reason Chen Mo came to this laboratory was naturally to see what abilities he had awakened. Before gaining absolute power, he would not participate in the disputes of this world. Moreover, this world is not a simple 600th world. It is more dangerous than Marvel World, with aliens, Superman, Clark and Hancock, black technology, Terminator and Batman, etc., and a group of super-powered individuals similar to X-Men, superheroes, among others. Especially, there are 2 super corporations. One is Cybertron Company, which develops Terminators, and the other is the famous Hearst, known for its superheroes. Hearst Corporation is a super company from the original superheroes, monitoring super-powered individuals globally to prevent them from being exposed to ordinary people. These 2 companies alone have already caused many apocalyptic timelines. If it weren't for the bug-like protagonists correcting them, the world might have already ended. Getting back to the main topic, in the past few days, Chen Mo had gradually been able to sense a strange, mysterious, and powerful magnetic field hidden within his body. Through his original self's memories, he vaguely remembered that after being struck by the blue lightning, the surrounding electromagnetic force field suddenly increased several times and merged into his body. Because the particle accelerator explosion produces dark energy and X-rays, almost whatever substance a superpowered individual comes into contact with on that day, they will gain that ability. And after being transformed by unknown energy, Chen Mo discovered that his physical fitness had reached the limit of an ordinary person, and he even controlled electromagnetic force similar to Magneto. Electromagnetic force, in Chen Mo's opinion, is quite useful. No matter which sci-fi world he goes to, any metallic substance can be used as a weapon, and he can also directly destroy the core inside robots, which can solve most dangers in a sci-fi world. It seems I should test my abilities. Only then can I survive in the Predator world 3 days later. Determination flickered in Chen Mo's eyes as he walked towards a testing ground, wanting to see how strong his power could be. Soon, Chen Mo arrived at a testing ground, where retired armored vehicles and alloy steel plates were placed everywhere, clearly for testing the combat data of the T-1 battlefield robot. Da. The Gatling guns on both sides of the T-1's shoulders rapidly spun, and 7mm bullets ignited orange-yellow flames, sweeping towards an armored vehicle in front, like a raging death storm. In less than 3 seconds, the armored vehicle in front was riddled with holes, proving the power of the T-series intelligent weapons. Greetings, sir. When Chen Mo arrived, 2 scientists respectfully greeted him. You two may leave. I want to personally test the power of the T-1. Chen Mo pondered for a moment and ordered the 2. The 2 scientists were slightly startled at Chen Mo's words at first, but they quickly recovered and promptly left the laboratory. Because Cybertron Company has military support, both researchers and scientists naturally obey orders absolutely. In the empty testing ground, he gently raised his right hand, and an invisible magnetic force suddenly erupted. Ding ding ding. Countless metal fragments in the testing ground floated up, colliding with each other and making crisp sounds. Then, countless metal fragments rotated continuously around Chen Mo. Immediately after, as if receiving some command, countless metal fragments rapidly attacked the armored vehicle. With a whoosh, the surface of the armored vehicle became pitted and dented as if struck by a meteorite. Controlling accelerated metal is not enough to reach the power of a sniper rifle, and the range is only about 100 meters. Chen Mo looked at the test results and couldn't help but show a hint of disappointment. It was a pity he didn't become a speedster like Flash, otherwise the Predator would never have been able to catch him. However, Chen Mo also knew he couldn't be too anxious. Since he could travel between different world planes with the help of the Myriad Worlds system, there must be an opportunity to become stronger. After testing his abilities, Chen Mo went to a Western restaurant and ordered a steak and a bottle of red wine, slowly enjoying a peaceful meal after his transmigration. It must be said, listening to beautiful music while eating a medium-rare steak was quite an enjoyment. Breaking news. A murder case has occurred in Manhattan, New York City. The suspect is estimated to be 95 centimeters tall and wearing a baseball cap. Is that Siler? Chen Mo stopped what he was doing as he listened to the news report, and looking up, he saw a somewhat familiar Caucasian face, then a hint of shock appeared on his face. That's right, the news was reporting about the major villain Siler, a highly dangerous antagonist who can steal others' superpowers. In his previous life, when Chen Mo watched Heroes, he knew that Siler's ability was observation, because he used to be a watchmaker, checking if watches were running normally, so his ability was to observe how everything worked. He would cut open and observe other people's brains to learn their abilities. Siler. It seems he's looking for metahumans. Chen Mo's face showed a hint of worry as he muttered to himself. If someone provided his information, that madman would surely come looking for him, so to avoid danger, he had to make some preparations. Moreover, Chen Mo knew his abilities weren't very strong, and even with some weapons, dealing with Siler would be difficult, so he only hoped that Siler wouldn't come looking for trouble. Furthermore, Siler's whereabouts were erratic. He would attack superpowered individuals like a hunter. When approaching a superpowered individual, Siler's mind would hear a clock-like ticking sound, and after finding his target, he would not care about the other person's identity at all. If Chen Mo encountered Siler, a fight would be unavoidable. New York City, Manhattan, at night. Outside Cybertron Company, a white van quietly pulled up nearby. A man with glasses inside used binoculars to observe the interior. Noah, are you sure you want to tell Sarah about this suspected metahuman? You know, the new generation of metahumans that appeared after the particle accelerator explosion are not easy to deal with. Inside the van, a blonde woman looked at the man with glasses and asked, puzzled. That's right, Al. Everyone in Central City who encountered the dark matter storm gained superpowers, and we can't let him go. Besides, the company needs Sarah to constantly grow stronger. Encountering Flash in Central City last time was also an accident. Noah explained with a smile, completely unconcerned by Al's words. His only consideration was the company's interests, so he wouldn't let go of any lone metahumans. You're right. Al's expression struggled for a moment, then he said with relief. Al Dillon was the daughter of a company veteran, and Noah Benny was a senior executive of the company. Their mission here was to help Sarah find metahumans and allow her to seize their superpowers. Last time, Sarah went to Central City to try and take Weather Wizard's ability, but she was ultimately interfered with by the guy who called himself Flash. As they were talking, a figure walked out of Cybertron Company, clearly their target. Okay, target acquired. Al, notify Sarah, Noah said excitedly. Al said nothing, quickly making the call to notify her. The autumn air carried a slight chill, making Chen Mo subconsciously pull his windbreaker tighter as he pondered the events of the past 2 days, while also appreciating the night view of New York City. After transmigrating and accepting his new identity, Chen Mo used his shareholder status to train his electromagnetic force ability while experiencing America's gun culture, preparing himself for becoming a predator. Chen Mo had already learned the basic operations of weapons like revolvers, Desert Eagles, Barretts, and M4A1 rifles. Indeed, Chen Mo carried 2 Desert Eagles with him, and a large box of grenades and rifles was stored in his spatial storage. This setup was enough to protect himself. Unknowingly, Chen Mo walked into a park, though it was empty due to the late hour. In the park, a figure wearing a baseball cap silently appeared behind him, exuding an aura that warned others to keep their distance. Who is it? Chen Mo sensed a change in the magnetic field and asked cautiously. It's me. Glad to meet you, metahuman, Sarah said with a hint of excitement. Pillager Sarah, how did you find me? You must have already copied several superpowers by now. Chen Mo recalled how Sarah appeared in the American TV series and said with some surprise. Hee, I never thought someone would know me so well. That's right, I am Sarah, the hunter of metahumans. Sarah smiled faintly, only surprised that someone could recognize her identity. In any case, this person would soon disappear completely. As expected, someone provided my information. It seems this battle is unavoidable. Chen Mo quickly pulled out his Desert Eagle, aimed at Sarah, and rapidly thought of a solution. Sarah seemed unconcerned by Chen Mo's vigilance. Instead, she looked at him like prey and said, "Give up your futile resistance. Give me your ability. I can't wait to gain new powers." Never. Chen Mo took a step back and pulled the trigger of his Desert Eagle. Bang bang bang. In less than 3 seconds, the Desert Eagle's bullets were all fired, but strangely, the bullets eerily floated in the air, as if controlled by some invisible force. It's telekinesis. Chen Mo's heart skipped a beat, and then he saw Sarah gently raise her right hand, and all the bullets were crushed into a ball of iron by an invisible force. All right, show's over, Sarah said expressionlessly. Immediately, Chen Mo felt his body lighten, and an invisible force tightly bound him, completely preventing him from moving freely. So strong. Chen Mo struggled for a moment, his face sinking. He knew that Sarah's strength was above his, and with telekinesis, which combined offense and defense, even if he had used his ability beforehand, he wouldn't have had any chance of winning. Then, Sarah simply raised her finger and made a slicing motion in the air, and a bloody cut appeared on Chen Mo's forehead. As a cut was made on his forehead by telekinesis, Chen Mo's brain became calm instead, and his body's magnetic field silently changed. At the same time, he mentally communicated with the large box of grenades in his spatial storage, hoping to use them at a crucial moment. Wait, don't you want to know what ability I awakened? Chen Mo's expression remained unchanged. Instead, he said playfully. Oh, what is it? Tell me, but it doesn't matter whether I know or not, I'm about to get it. Sarah paused slightly when she heard Chen Mo's words, stopping her actions, then looked at him mockingly. Meanwhile, Noah and Al were observing Sarah's situation from the van. That kid is finished, but I'm curious what ability he possesses. I didn't see him use anything just now. The man with glasses, Noah, looked at Chen Mo curiously, somewhat dissatisfied. Not necessarily, I think he seems to be hiding his power. Al shook her head, not entirely believing Noah's words. Haha, Al, you're really joking. Sarah's ability is very strong. As an observer, she can almost learn all superpowers. The only one who can compare to her is Peter Perry. No's tone was full of disdain, seemingly looking down on Chen Mo, a metahuman with only one ability. Al did not refute No's words, but simply watched the situation in the distance. My ability is magnetism, electromagnetic force. As soon as Chen Mo finished speaking, countless metal particles around him rapidly formed into soybean-sized iron sand, which shot towards Sarah's back. What? Sarah's face changed. She released the telekinesis that bound Chen Mo and quickly used telekinesis to defend against the dense iron sand. Puff puff puff. Although Sarah reacted quickly, Her left arm was still pierced by several grains of iron sand. Seizing the rare opportunity, Chenmo created a 5-meter distance between himself and Sarah. Sarah, I'll remember this grudge, Chenmo said coldly to Sarah. HMPH, you can't escape. Sarah clutched her injured shoulder, raised her head, and glared ferociously at Chenmo. Oh, really? I don't think so. Chenmo's expression remained unchanged, and he lightly snapped his fingers. Instantly, 30 grenades, controlled by magnetism and about to explode, abruptly appeared in front of Sarah. Accompanied by a boom. A loud explosion, the resulting firestorm easily engulfed Sarah. Just before the grenades exploded, Chenmo also quickly fled the area. He knew very well that Sarah would not be so easily dealt with, revenge would have to wait for later. Outside a park in New York City. After Noah and Al discovered Sarah's failed operation, they drove their van towards the area where the grenade had exploded. How is this possible? Sarah actually failed, Noah said in disbelief as he drove the car. It's too late for that now, Noah. Find Sarah immediately and see if he's alive. Then report this to the company. Al narrowed his eyes and said seriously to Noah. This superpowered individual is indeed valuable, Noah nodded heavily in response. They had witnessed the entire battle, so they saw Chenmo conjure dozens of grenades out of thin air and even detonate them using magnetism. In less than a minute, they found Sarah, but his condition was not good. He had a penetrating wound in his shoulder, and there was a lot of blood from his nose and mouth. Then, Noah quickly opened the car door, checked if Sarah was breathing, and nodded to Al. They were quite concerned about the company's important experimental subjects. He's still alive, we must take him to the hospital immediately, Noah said sternly as he put Sarah back in the car. Understood. We need to leave here immediately. The New York City Guard is about to arrive. Al said nothing, started the car, and disappeared from the park. An hour later, in the Cybertron company's chairman's office, Miles Dyson personally poured a cup of coffee, gently placed it in front of Chenmo, and patted his shoulder. Morpheus, I heard you were attacked. What happened? Miles asked, looking at Chenmo with concern. Chenmo nodded slightly, took a sip of coffee, and said with a sense of relief, it's nothing, just a minor trouble. Then tell me what happened. If necessary, he must pay the price. Miles frowned, speaking with murderous intent. Because the Cybertron company was the result of Miles and Chenmo's original body's joint efforts, Miles greatly valued his brother. Furthermore, with the Cybertron company's military background, anyone who dared to cause trouble would certainly not fare well. I encountered a guy named Sarah. He seems to have some kind of superpower, so when I confronted him, I detonated a grenade and escaped. Chenmo took a sip of coffee, speaking vaguely. Sarah, I've heard of him. I'll send someone to investigate that guy thoroughly. Miles said seriously, a hint of ruthlessness in his eyes. Well, thank you, Miles, Chenmo said gratefully. However, Chenmo knew that Miles's investigation would likely yield no results. Sarah, as a superpowered individual valued by Hearst Corporation, would not be easily caught. Oh, right, you can go back and take over the T1 Robot Research Institute in New York City now. Miles thought for a moment, then said seriously to Chenmo. No need, Miles, leave it to you. I want to change locations, perhaps to the laboratory in Central City. Hearing Miles's words, Chenmo just shook his head and refused. Central City, what are you going there for? Are you going to find those people at STAR Labs? Miles said strangely, clearly not understanding Chenmo's thoughts. 9 months ago, Chenmo invested in STAR Labs, but the experiment failed, and the particle accelerator exploded. Chenmo himself was in a coma for 9 months, so Miles found him a bit incomprehensible. Of course, I still need their help with some matters, and I need to find a place for new research, Chenmo said ambiguously, looking at Miles. All right then, it's good for you to go out and explore. Just come back whenever you need to. In fact, Chenmo's reason for going to Central City, besides avoiding Miles discovering his secret of crossing, was also to evade monitoring by Hearst Corporation. So, he temporarily needed to lie low and slowly grow stronger. Secondly, in the past few days, Chenmo learned about the Cybertron company's laboratory in Central City. It was located on the outskirts of the city, covering an area of 3,200 square meters, and served as Cybertron company's new energy and arms research and development department. It was suitable as his research base, which is why he set his sights on the Central City Laboratory. Also, after this fatal contact with Sarah, Chenmo had to arm himself as quickly as possible and prepare to deal with those troubles. Therefore, 2 days before the crossing, Chenmo used Cybertron Company's equipment to specially make 10 trigger-activated landmines, each containing 5 kilograms of TNT, extracted a batch of Stinger missiles from storage, and even prepared various military-grade canned goods, all for the convenience of future time travel. As for Chenmo's actions, Miles was only slightly puzzled and didn't dwell too much on his friend's unusual behavior. Currently, Chenmo had only seen the tip of the iceberg of this dangerous world, and many more dangers were likely to come. However, facing the deep malice of this world, Chenmo would never back down. Even if it meant struggling with all his might, he would never give up. Immediately after, on the last night before crossing to the Predator world, Chenmo silently boarded a helicopter and headed to the Central City Weapons Research Institute. Upon arriving at his private laboratory, Chenmo glanced at the tactical watch on his wrist. It showed 11:50, meaning there were about 10 minutes until the crossing. Finally in Central City, the time for crossing is almost here. Chenmo muttered to himself, while also checking the equipment in his storage space, a faint smile appearing on his face. As time gradually passed, the emotionless voice of the system appeared in Chenmo's mind. Ding! Predator World, Time-Space Channel opening. 5, 4, 3, 1. A white light enveloped Chenmo's body, and he gradually transformed into specks of light, dissipating in the laboratory. When Chenmo came to his senses again, he found himself in a tropical rainforest. In front of him was a military camp, and there were Special Forces soldiers training inside. Ding! Welcome host to Predator 1 Foot. Your current identity is a member of Dutch's squad. The mission for this world has been issued. Ding! Mission 1. Survive until the end of the plot. Ding! Mission 2. Hunt at least 2 predators. Ding! Upon mission completion, reward, X-01 power armor from the Fallout 4 Feet world. Note: this item can be fused with alien technology for 1 upgrade and enhancement. As the Myriad Worlds system issued the mission for this world, Chenmo began his adventure in his first world. Outside a camp in the Predator world, Chenmo recalled the plot of Predator after hearing the system's mission. He knew that in the original plot, there was only 1 Predator, so this mission would definitely be quite difficult. In the original Predator plot, Dutch's squad was deceived by Dylan, initially appearing to be searching for a missing pilot and his cabinet members. However, it wasn't that simple, and unfortunately, they eventually encountered the Predator, leading to the near annihilation of the squad. Based on the mission issued by the system, Chenmo estimated that the number of Predators would not be less than 5. With their alien high-tech, they could easily wipe out his team 10 times over if they weren't careful. Of course, the high risk also brought considerable rewards, such as the X-01 power armor from Fallout 4, which could be upgraded and enhanced once, allowing Chenmo to reinforce it with the alien technology from the Predator world. Because the X-01 power armor itself was a power armor specially designed and used by the surviving U.S. military after the nuclear war, it had a miniature nuclear battery inside that could last for a month, and its power would be even stronger when loaded with various tactical plugins. As Chenmo was pondering the plot and countermeasures, 2 soldiers in the camp slowly walked over and met him. Hi, Morpheus, welcome to headquarters. Sorry to interrupt your vacation. Hawkins, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, said helplessly. All right, I understand, Hawkins. Chenmo came back to his senses and smiled. Because the system had assigned Chenmo the identity of a member who had joined Dutch's squad 3 years ago, everyone else mistook his expression for dissatisfaction about his vacation being cancelled. Chen, perhaps you should have a puff of this to perk up. You're the only Asian kid in our team. Bray, the machine gunner, handed over a box of tobacco and said enthusiastically. No thanks, Bray. Chenmo shook his head, politely declining Bray's offer. Speaking of which, Bray and Hawkins didn't have much luck. They were both taken out by the Predator shortly after their appearance. Then, Chenmo chatted with the 2 of them for a while before walking towards the command center in the camp. Along the way, he also encountered the stern-faced Billy, the Black Mike, and Ramirez, nodding to them before knocking on the command center door. Come in. After hearing the voice from inside, Chenmo pushed open the door and walked towards the white man who resembled Arnold. Reporting, Major Dutch, Morpheus Chen reporting for duty. Chen Mo saluted Major Dutch and said seriously. Haha, welcome, Asian kid. Major Dutch gave Chen Mo a hug and greeted him happily. He seems like a very promising young man. I heard his strength is on par with yours. CIA agent Dylan shook his sore wrist and said in surprise to Dutch, with whom he had just arm wrestled. That's right, I think so too, Dutch said admiringly. Alright, lads, we officially start in 3 hours. General Wolf, seated nearby, smiled and said. When Dutch received the mission, he gave a brief summary to his squad members as usual and had them each go to the quartermaster's department to collect suitable weapons. Chen Mo naturally also received suitable weapons, an AK-47, a Desert Eagle, a machete, an anti-tank rocket launcher, and a camouflage net. Carrying some medicine and food in a jungle combat backpack was basically enough. The rest of the special destructive weapons were in his storage space. If necessary, he could put on a fireworks show in front of the predators. Chen Mo was still worried and hesitant about the upcoming mission. After all, this was his first time operating with special forces, and he was facing predators who were born for combat. The pressure was imaginable. With everything ready, they arrived at the designated location, boarded a helicopter, and set off for their destination. Beep, beep, beep. Upon reaching the designated location, the helicopter cabin flashed dazzling red lights, signaling the start of the mission. Alright, guys, let's move out. Major Dutch gave the order, and the helicopter dropped several ropes. The other team members grabbed the ropes and descended to the ground. Is it finally starting? Chen Mo tightly gripped the rifle in his hand, looking at the primeval forest outside the cabin, his heart filled with tension. Hey, relax, relax. Dutch seemed to notice Chen Mo's inner tension and walked over to remind him. Okay, Major. He forced a smile at Major Dutch and somewhat awkwardly slid down the helicopter rope. Major Dutch also looked at him in surprise, clearly not understanding why his veteran team member was showing such a beginner's awkwardness. Upon entering the jungle, Chen Mo's concentration became highly focused, sensing the subtle changes in the magnetic field, and guarding against a predator ambush. Dutch's squad members also used a fan-shaped cross-advance tactic, mutually vigilant to prevent enemies from finding weaknesses. Chen Mo used some knowledge he learned in the main world to barely avoid showing any flaws. The cawing of crows occasionally echoed through the dense tropical rainforest, as if foretelling something bad was about to happen. As Chen Mo advanced, he gazed at a corner not far away. A predator was hidden there, but he couldn't deal with it using his electromagnetic force ability. Because the predator's high-tech armor seemed to have some kind of anti-magnetic device that completely isolated electromagnetic force interference. After Dutch's squad walked for about 30 minutes, they arrived at the helicopter crash site and began searching around. Boss, the helicopter's been found. It's in the tree. Chen Mo recalled the plot and, without much effort, was the first to find the helicopter. Upon hearing the sound, everyone looked up and discovered the helicopter wreckage. Ramirez threw a grappling hook and investigated the situation inside. Boss, the helicopter was hit by a thermal weapon. The equipment and radio on board are gone. And this helicopter isn't ordinary, it's a reconnaissance helicopter. Ramirez reported his findings to Dutch in less than a minute. Major Dutch's expression was filled with doubt. He looked up and asked Dylan, Dylan, why does this armed force have thermal weapons? Dylan merely shook his head in response to Major Dutch's question, indicating he didn't know, but his evasive gaze had already made Major Dutch suspicious. While they were talking, Chen Mo was also considering the next course of action. Directly telling Major Dutch about the predator would likely not be believed. As for exposing his superpowers, that wasn't a good choice either. After much thought, Chen Mo decided to find an appropriate time to let them know about the predator's existence. In the dense tropical rainforest, after Major Dutch discovered the crashed helicopter, he ordered the others to stay put. Chen Mo's task was to follow Billy and investigate the surrounding clues. As expected, they found footprints from 2 groups of people nearby, as well as scattered bullet casings on the ground. These footprints appear to be from the army. Judging by the footprints, there should be 6 of them. Chen Mo half crouched on the ground, gesturing to Billy at the footprints in front of him, and said thoughtfully. That's right, it seems a battle also took place. Billy naturally also noticed the bullet casings on the ground, and his brows furrowed deeper and deeper. Billy, a descendant of Native Americans, had a remarkably accurate sixth sense for danger. This abnormal situation had already made him aware of something amiss. In less than 3 minutes, they arrived at a somewhat eerie thicket. Caw, caw, scavenging crows constantly circled above, and the air around them carried a faint scent of blood. Billy, this is it. I'll stand guard here, you go up and take a look. Chen Mo pointed to the area above and said seriously. Billy had no objections and climbed onto the tree branch like a leopard. Finally, he found the target of this mission up there, but they had already lost their lives, hanging upside down from the tree, their skin even gone. Chen Mo knew the plot, so he just stood guard on the side. The scene above was too gruesome for a rookie like him to witness. Morpheus, tell the chief to come over. We've found the target. Billy jumped down from the branch and instructed him. Understood. Chen Mo nodded and quickly brought Dutch and the others over. After Major Dutch and his team arrived, Billy handed over an identity tag with Genshap written on it and recounted what had happened at the scene. Then, everyone became enraged. Faced with the enemy's provocation, they had to respond with the most thunderous strike. Chief, according to the footprints, there should still be captives. Chen Mo reminded Major Dutch after he understood all the clues. Then find their camp and exact blood for blood. Major Dutch said with sharp eyes, even radiating a murderous aura. The members of Dutch's squad were experts in jungle warfare. They quietly tracked the footprints to the enemy's camp. Chen Mo was also filled with excitement and tension. This was his first formal battle. When all the squad members were in position, Dutch extended his hand and made a tactical gesture, and the other team members each sought their targets. Chen Mo also quickly climbed onto a hillside, hunting for his own target. He stared fiercely at the edge of a forest, seeing only an armed man casually smoking a cigarette, completely unaware of the danger behind him. Suddenly, Chen Mo attacked from behind, covering his mouth and thrusting a knife through his heart. After the target lost his life, he quickly dragged him into the jungle. After facing the life or death crisis brought upon him by Sierra, the old Chen Mo was long gone, replaced only by a humble survivor who merely wanted to live. Okay, the Asian kid got one, Dylan said with a smile, holding his binoculars. The rest of them also moved smoothly, silently eliminating their outposts and hiding in the best ambush locations. Next, Major Dutch, as a lone hero, infiltrated the enemy's camp, coming to the back of a modified vehicle. He raised his hand, gave the command to prepare for attack, and attached C4 devices to the back of the modified vehicle. As Major Dutch pushed out the modified vehicle and it rushed towards the center of the camp, exploding, Chen Mo also took 3 high-explosive grenades from his combat uniform and threw them out. The grenades arced strangely in midair, landing directly in front of a group of enemies. With a boom, they were blown away before they could react. Dutch's squad's firepower was fierce. This armed group couldn't organize an effective counterattack and was largely annihilated. Chen Mo also used his AK-47 to fire in bursts, cleaning up the stragglers. Although his marksmanship was quite bad, he could still cheat using his electromagnetic ability, achieving an effect similar to gun fu. 10 minutes later, everything returned to quiet, and this stronghold was completely destroyed. After capturing a prisoner named Anna, Dylan also found confidential documents, and finally, Major Dutch gave the order to retreat. In this area, they had no reinforcements. Staying there to fight to the death with the enemy was not the Special Forces style. The predator hidden nearby also used thermal imaging devices to observe them closely, clearly looking for an opportune moment to hunt and complete his first hunt as an adult. The other 5 adult predators were also not far away, quietly observing his performance. Chen Mo and Major Dutch marched at zoom speed for 2 hours, trying to avoid a large-scale enemy attack and heading towards the helicopter rendezvous point. However, during their march, Billy suddenly stopped, looking extremely alertly at the forest not far away. The feeling of being watched made him shiver. Billy, what's wrong? Major Dutch frowned, wanting to ask Billy what he had found. No, nothing. Billy's expression struggled for a moment, then he shook his head at Major Dutch. While Major Dutch and Billy were talking, the captive suddenly grabbed a wooden stick and hit Ramirez hard on the head, but before she could run a few meters, Chen Mo pointed his rifle at her. Sorry, please return to your original spot. Chen Mo's eyes were filled with coldness as he said threateningly. As if sensing Chen Mo's killing intent, the captive Anna was too scared to move. She naturally didn't realize what disaster her escape would bring to this squad. Well done, Morpheus. Ramirez rubbed his head and gave Chen Mo a thumbs up. However, Chen Mo didn't respond at all. Instead, he replaced the rifle's bullets with steel core ones and picked up the anti-tank rocket launcher in his hand. As Chen Mo entered maximum alert, a sound also came from the distant forest. When the sound appeared, Dutch's squad also raised their weapons simultaneously and slowly began to investigate. It's a hedgehog. Hawkins stepped forward to look, and found a hedgehog. However, just as the squad members began to relax, a brilliant blue plasma beam cut through the bushes, easily melting Hawkins's right shoulder. Speaking of which, if Hawkins hadn't remained vigilant and deviated a little at the critical moment, he might have ended up like Bray in the original plot, directly getting his box lunch. Enemy attack. The moment the Predator hit Hawkins, Chen Mo also pressed the trigger of the anti-tank rocket launcher and used magnetism to guide the rocket towards the Predator. Ah! Hawkins let out a miserable shriek, the pain of the plasma cannon melting him causing him to wail. Upon realizing something was wrong, Chen Mo and the rest of Dutch's squad also counterattacked. With a whoosh, a rocket slammed towards the Predator above, but a red light flashed, and the rocket was blasted apart mid-air by a plasma cannon. He even counterattacked in Chen Mo's direction with energy cannons, only to see several azure energy beams streak through the forest, striking irresistibly. Danger! Chen Mo had long anticipated this move from the Predator, so he rolled on the ground, avoiding the attack range of the energy cannons. Ah! Just then, another scream reached his ears. Clearly some unlucky person had been hit, but Chen Mo had no time to worry about it now. Under the shadow of death, a strong killing intent appeared in Chen Mo's eyes. After all, even a clay figure has a bit of temper, and he didn't want to be hunted like prey by the Predator, his head becoming its trophy. The Predator's combat experience was far greater than Dutch's squad's. As a species born for battle, facing them was like a cat playing with a mouse. Da. Chen Mo lay on the ground, raised his rifle, aimed at the Predator's position, and began to spray bullets. With a thud, the electromagnetic accelerated armor-piercing bullet barely tore through a part of the Predator's shoulder armor, and green, fluorescent-like blood splattered onto the nearby leaves. Grenades! Major Dutch shouted loudly, and the other team members also threw defensive grenades one after another, coupled with Major Dutch's grenade launcher, continuously triggering violent explosions. Taking advantage of the rare opportunity, the Gatling gun and assault rifles fired alternately with insane intensity. The dense firepower quickly destroyed the forest in front of them, but the Predator's movements were too fast. After the grenades exploded, it escaped Dutch's squad's attack range with its superior armor. 15 minutes later, the forest in front of Chen Mo had been completely destroyed, but there was no trace of the attacker. Dutch's squad could only stay on high alert to prevent another sneak attack. Billy, report our personnel losses, Major Dutch said with an exceedingly grim expression. Yes, sir. Billy saluted Major Dutch and reported their personnel losses. Hawkins is severely wounded, Ramirez is dead. After Major Dutch heard Billy's report, he turned to Chen Mo and asked seriously, Morpheus, do you know what that thing is? Chen Mo shook his head at Major Dutch, pondered for a moment, and then narrated, No, I don't know. I just feel that thing has special equipment for invisibility, and it regards us as prey. The Predator's combat power was very strong, causing 1 death and 1 injury to the squad members right after its appearance. So, if Chen Mo wanted to complete the mission, he would have to play a few dirty tricks. Anna, just like in the original plot, found the Predator's blood and secretly smeared it on herself. Upon hearing this, Major Dutch nodded slightly and had Billy urgently treat Hawkins with medicine to prevent the wound from getting infected. Dylan, the black man, also contacted headquarters and informed them of the helicopter's rendezvous point. They then retreated to a distant area, intending to build a defensive position on a hillside, but Chen Mo knew that traps would not be very effective against the Predator. Along the way, no one was in the mood for jokes. After advancing for a while, they heard a howling sound from somewhere in the forest, clearly the Predator using a medical kit to heal itself. As evening approached, they chose a suitable campsite and set up various traps around it, but Chen Mo knew that this alone would not be enough to defeat the Predator. Wait, Major, I don't think these traps will do any good. Chen Mo stopped his actions, came before Major Dutch, and stated with certainty. Major Dutch did not interrupt him. Instead, he seriously asked him, Morpheus, tell me your opinion. Since that unknown monster is in this area, someone must know its secret. Only by understanding it can we completely eliminate it. Chen Mo said, staring intently at Anna, speaking meaningfully. I understand what you mean, Major Dutch said, his eyes lighting up. As soon as Chen Mo finished speaking, Major Dutch instantly understood his meaning and turned to Anna to ask for clues about the predator, to avoid the situation where the predator infiltrated the camp, as happened in the original plot. Because there was more than one predator in this forest, if they were to infiltrate the camp, their entire squad might be wiped out. So, for his own safety, he had to guide Major Dutch to make the right choice. Soon, Major Dutch learned most of the clues about the predator from Anna and made improvements to the traps around the camp. "I've found his weakness. Let's work together and take him down," Major Dutch said, clenching his fists. "I hope we are the ultimate victors," Billy said with some worry. "I'm going to teach that fool a good lesson," Bray roared, looking at the incapacitated Hawkins. Mike and Dylan's faces were grim. The sacrifice and severe injury of their comrade had ignited the powder kegs within them. "We must complete the mission and survive." Chen Mo also gripped his rifle tightly, his heart filled with determination. Next, Dutch's squad used the found vines to set up traps, hoping to use primitive traps to deal with the high-tech, special monster. When the others left after setting up, Chen Mo secretly took out a tripwire mine from his storage space, which contained about 5 kilograms of TNT. After wrapping it in wet mud, he buried it next to the trap net. To ensure the plan proceeded smoothly, he didn't tell anyone else. At the very least, he couldn't explain the mine that appeared out of thin air. After setting up the traps, everyone moved about 10 meters away from them. They stood guard in pairs, watching a designated area. As soon as there was any sign of movement, countless large-caliber bullets would greet it. Unexpectedly, the night was quiet, and no predator came to attack them. Time gradually approached morning. Chen Mo had not rested all night. Instead, he held up his rifle and carefully sensed changes in the magnetic field. Gradually, an ominous feeling appeared in his heart, seemingly a killing intent, and also somewhat like being targeted by a hunter. In short, Dutch's squad became vigilant, looking for any abnormalities. Major Dutch made a tactical gesture, ordering them to be on alert, while he himself wanted to check the traps. However, before Dutch could even reach the trap net, the trap Chen Mo had set was already activated. In the dense forest, just as Dutch was about to rush to check the trap, a dazzling flash of fire suddenly erupted. Major Dutch felt an intense heat before he even got close, and the violent explosion caused Major Dutch to experience temporary tinnitus. The rest of Dutch's squad was dumbfounded. In their impression, something should have fallen into the trap net, not exploded. They clearly remembered that a trap net had been set here, but for some reason, it had turned into something else. "Now, let's eliminate him together," Chen Mo shouted a reminder to them, then he suddenly rushed forward, running towards the smoke. "Oh, oh," the others heard Chen Mo's voice, raised their weapons, and ran over together. Dutch looked at the people behind him, shook his dizzy head, and walked towards the direction filled with gunpowder smoke. Before long, in the large pit at the center of the explosion, they saw a struggling figure wearing a pig face mask, clad in armor, and emitting blue lightning all over, though the predator was smoking black. In particular, the predator's leg and abdominal armor had been torn in some places, the iron-blood shoulder cannon on his armor was flashing with electromagnetic sparks, and green fluorescent blood was continuously dripping from his body. Large doses of TNT were no joke. Even with the predator's strong armor defense, there was still a limit to what it could withstand. After Billy followed Chen Mo forward, he kicked over the struggling predator, and then everyone began to finish him off. "Die!" Billy roared when he saw the predator, and countless bullets sprayed towards his head. "Ah, ah, ah!" Bray's multi-barreled Gatling also let out a cry of vengeance, and large-caliber bullets hammered the predator as if they were free. Mike and Dylan also launched a frenzied assault, not to be outdone. Since they had caught the attacker, they naturally wouldn't let him go easily. As everyone worked together to gang up on the predator, Chen Mo took out the few remaining grenades on him, threw them all at once, and delivered a final blow. With a boom, a huge explosion appeared again, and the predator was once again bathed in flames and shockwaves. Just then, a notification appeared in his mind, indicating that he had completed the hunt of a predator. 5 minutes later, the predator in the large pit had completely lost his life, and with everyone's encirclement, he couldn't even detonate the Xeno blood bomb. It is worth mentioning that after enduring so many attacks, the predator's armor remained intact, showing how excellent the Iron Blood set was. Moreover, the Iron Blood bomb, Iron Blood dagger, and Iron Blood spear, which Chen Mo coveted, were mostly undamaged, with only the Iron Blood shoulder cannon severely damaged. Huff, huff, huff. After the predator was taken down, everyone collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily, becoming the victors of this battle. We won, we won. We finally took down that fool, Major Dutch said with delight, lighting a cigar. I once heard my tribesmen say that they are born warriors. If we hadn't used traps, we would have been the ones taken down. Billy recalled the legends passed down in his homeland, speaking with emotion. Asian kid, that was really well done. Dylan also praised Chen Mo. Of course, but I still need his equipment. Are you interested in taking a look? Chen Mo stood up and walked towards the predator. I also want to see what the hell that thing is, Major Dutch nodded and said. Major Dutch had no objection to Chen Mo's words, and as he recalled yesterday's memories, he also understood that Chen Mo had secretly buried the landmines in the trap net. Would Major Dutch be angry? The answer is clearly no. As teammates who had been together for several years, Major Dutch didn't care about the process, the result was what mattered. Enemies like the Predator were too powerful, exchanging their safety for minimal losses seemed like a very worthwhile deal. Then, they managed to remove the Predator's pig face mask, only to see a face that did not conform to human aesthetics, entering their view. Oh my god, how ugly. Bray kicked the alien in front of him, exclaiming in surprise. Bray, that's not the point. Everyone, cooperate with Morpheus to remove his weapons. Major Dutch commanded. After all, they owed their survival this time to Chen Mo's method, so even if Chen Mo took most of the spoils, Major Dutch wouldn't say anything. With everyone's cooperation, many pieces of unknown alloy armor fragments were removed, along with an iron blood retractable spear, 2 iron blood daggers of different lengths, wrist blades, boomerangs, metal throwing nets, a plasma shoulder cannon reactor, pig face detector, xeno blood bomb, and other valuable items. The Predator's equipment was quite excellent. After understanding the system's rewards, Chen Mo decided to use that alien technology to strengthen his own ultimate armor. Then, Chen Mo unhesitatingly picked up the iron blood shoulder cannon reactor, and xeno blood bomb, as well as an iron blood long dagger and a few pieces of alloy armor fragments, then pushed the remaining items to Major Dutch and his squad. Being part of the same squad, Chen Mo also knew he couldn't be too greedy, he would still need their help when eliminating the other Predator later. Everyone has worked hard too. Let's keep one as a trophy. Chen Mo smiled and said generously. How can we accept this? Dylan said awkwardly, while quickly grabbing the other iron blood dagger. The others saw Dylan's actions and frantically rushed towards the remaining equipment, afraid of not getting anything. They clearly understood the power of that alien technology, and then began to choose their spoils. Meanwhile, as Dutch's squad was dividing the spoils, several transparent shadows not far away quietly approached their vicinity. Rule was taken down by those prey. He didn't pass the coming-of-age ceremony. Among the transparent shadows, the tallest figure said regretfully. But he's the elder's son. Is it really okay for us to go back like this? Another shadow worried. HMPH, our tribe only needs the strong, a nearby shadow said disdainfully. However, I'm very interested in one of the humans inside. He's worth me making a move, the tall shadow said with satisfaction. Then let's continue our hunt for them. It'll pass the time. Exactly, it'll give the elder an explanation. The 2 predators who had not spoken suggested. Chen Mo naturally wouldn't know that the predators had already discussed how to hunt them. A more dangerous battle was about to unfold. In the dense forest, Dutch's squad began a forced march towards the helicopter rendezvous point not far away. On their way out, they set up various traps and booby traps, hoping to get an early warning when the predator approached. However, Chen Mo knew this was useless because he sensed 3 predators lurking nearby through his magnetic field, seemingly with no intention of letting them go. Furthermore, it couldn't be ruled out that other predators might be blocking them at another location. Also, Hawkins and their team was severely wounded and had to be supported by Mac, greatly increasing their retreat time. As they approached the log bridge from the movie, Billy and Chen Mo stopped simultaneously, their faces filled with vigilance and apprehension. Everyone be careful, I feel that thing. Billy's sixth sense gave a strong warning as the predator approached. That's right, they're here. Chen Mo also nodded, saying solemnly. Adult predators are very strong, move extremely fast, and employ more sophisticated tactical methods than the predator they ambushed. Just as they formed a defensive formation, a Chom blue plasma cannon accurately struck Hawkins's head, startling Mac. Before he could react, a silver spear flew out from the forest, easily piercing Mac's heart, and hot blood splattered everywhere. Run! Facing imminent death, Chen Mo quickly raised his rifle and counterattacked. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Major Dutch also counterattacked with grenade launchers, and with their concentrated firepower, the predator could only temporarily avoid their attacks. Seizing the rare opportunity, Major Dutch and Chen Mo quickly suppressed the enemy with their firepower while retreating towards the log bridge. After crossing the log bridge, Chen Mo stopped, turned around, and said seriously to Major Dutch, "You go. I'll cover your retreat here." What are you kidding about? Everyone must live." Major Dutch shook his head in extreme opposition when he heard him. "There's no time, hurry up and leave for the helicopter rendezvous point," Chen Mo said without hesitation. "All right then, everyone leave all the grenades for Morpheus, we're retreating," Major Dutch ordered with some pain. Dylan looked at Chen Mo, who was staying behind, and handed him an iron blood dagger, patting his shoulder as he said, "Remember to come back alive, Asian kid, you'll use him." Chen Mo nodded slightly, accepted the weapons they left, watched them leave, then turned around and returned to the log bridge. Actually, it wasn't that Chen Mo wanted to stay and be a hero, he had simply thought of a solution to the problem. He had many weapons in his storage space, and combined with his superpowers, that was Chen Mo's true confidence. For the 2 missions of the Myriad Worlds system, Mission 1 would be completed as long as Major Dutch and his team retreated to the helicopter. As for Mission 2, he was only 1 step away from completing it. Using his magnetic field sensing, Chen Mo discovered that the 3 predators did not pursue Dutch's squad, instead, they were heading towards his position. There was no panic on Chen Mo's face, he simply put all his weapons and most of his spoils into his storage space and raised an iron blood dagger. "Come on, you rats," Chen Mo, imitating Billy from the movie, shouted a loud provocation, knowing that he would surely get a response from the predator. Indeed, a flash appeared in front of the log bridge, and 3 predators slowly walked forward. The leading predator was incredibly tall, with half of his body covered in iron blood armor, shimmering with a cold, silvery white light. In addition, their exquisite iron blood set and reptile-like skin could be seen. Then, the tall predator pressed a few buttons on his wrist-mounted miniature computer, and a guttural language appeared in his ear. "Human, I admire your courage. I'll give you a fair fight." After the leading predator finished speaking, he removed his facial armor, revealing his true appearance. Behind him, 2 predators stood on either side, like spectators at this decisive battle. Good opportunity. Chen Mo's eyes lit up, it was exactly as he had thought. The predator indeed did not choose to gang up. The leading predator stood on the log bridge and charged with an iron blood spear. With a clink, the iron blood spear and the iron blood dagger collided, creating a brilliant spark. Facing the predator's overwhelming strength, Chen Mo retreated several steps before he could barely stand firm. However, before Chen Mo could continue to think, the predator launched a storm-like attack, forcing him to barely cope. Soon, Chen Mo's arms and abdomen were cut with numerous wounds of varying depths by the iron blood spear. If Chen Mo's danger perception hadn't been strong, he might have been killed long ago. "Your head, I'll take it, human warrior." The predator revealed a sinister smile, as if it were his declaration. HMPH. Chen Mo snorted coldly when he heard the predator's words, his mind becoming highly focused. No sooner had he spoken than the predator's speed increased severalfold, and he raised his iron blood spear, intending to pierce the human's head in front of him. However, before he could get close, countless dense metal projectiles flew towards him. Chen Mo suddenly produced a Gatling gun from his hand and unleashed a vengeful fire, riddling the predator like a sieve mid-attack. When the green fluorescent blood splattered on his face, Chen Mo knew his risky plan had succeeded, and he had finally completed this mission. Success. After Chen Mo dealt with the predator, he immediately put the dead predator into his storage space. Then, as the 2 remaining predators froze, preparing to counterattack Chen Mo, countless black iron balls of various sizes appeared out of thin air in front of them, a small pile of grenades, dozens of Stinger missiles, 9 specialized landmines, and other items. "Good luck to you," Chen Mo said with a cold smile, quickly using magnetic force to detonate the internal gunpowder and jumping off the log bridge without hesitation. In less than 3 seconds, a continuous series of boom, boom explosions was heard. A huge mushroom cloud, representing death, appeared, and the energy it carried not only crushed the log bridge but also engulfed the surrounding 300-meter area. Under the bridge, Chen Mo barely managed to crawl up, raised his head to look at the smoke-filled area above, and a slight smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chen Mo believed that with such power, even if the predators didn't die, they would be completely incapacitated. Night, a corner of the dense forest, an area burning with flames. Chen Mo began to carefully explore this area, fearing another sneak attack from the predator, but he was still overthinking it. Within a few minutes, he found the lifeless predator under the bridge. Only 2 predators were seen. Apart from their iron blood sets being mostly intact, the rest of their bodies were completely charred, indicating that Chen Mo's risky plan had succeeded. I'm rich. 2 more iron blood sets. Chen Mo exclaimed, his eyes filled with fervor. This battle with the predator was too dangerous, a slight misstep could have led to his demise. If he hadn't prepared special ammunition in the main world beforehand, he might have already died. After all, the predator's strength was evident. Even Chen Mo, who had undergone initial strengthening in the main world, nearly died, which shows how dangerous the predator was. Then, after Chen Mo removed the 2 iron blood sets and placed them into his storage space, he smeared himself with wet mud and walked towards Major Dutch's position, holding an iron blood spear. Because 3 hours had passed and he still hadn't returned to the main world, it was clear that Major Dutch and his team were blocked by other predators. Meanwhile, in a cave in the forest, Billy and Major Dutch were hiding, wary of any approaching predators. Indeed, their retreat plan during the day had completely failed. After Major Dutch and his team left the log bridge, they were ambushed by 2 other predators. As a result, Bray and Dylan were killed, and they unexpectedly fell into a waterfall, barely saving their lives. Sir, do you think that captive will successfully reach the helicopter? Billy asked Major Dutch, thoughtfully. He will, and we will get there too, Major Dutch said coldly, sharpening a wooden stake. We must survive, for Morpheus, for all our fallen comrades. Billy spoke with extreme coldness, recalling the loud bang he heard before fleeing for his life. Major Dutch nodded silently, lit a bonfire, and smeared cold, wet mud on himself. With a roar, both men let out defiant roars, hoping to attract the predator to check their location. Soon, rustling sounds appeared in the woods. Within a few minutes, 2 predators, revealing their figures, came to the bonfire to investigate. However, the predators did not find Billy and Major Dutch. Under the cover of wet mud, the predator's detector could not find them at all. As one predator passed a trap, Billy gently raised his wooden bow, an explosive arrow attached to the arrowhead. At the same time, Major Dutch, holding an iron blood spear, quietly approached the other predator. With a whoosh, the high explosive arrow hit the predator's head hard, blasting him away. The other predator, without hesitation, fired its plasma cannon towards Billy, the scorching energy beam covering the surroundings and exploding countless sparks, leaving Billy struggling to dodge. Suddenly, a silver-white iron blood spear pierced the predator from behind. Before Major Dutch could celebrate, the opponent spun around and kicked Major Dutch flying. Major Dutch coughed up a mouthful of bruised blood, then struggled to run to a nearby trap. At this moment, the predator pulled out the spear from its back and threw it on the ground, a wrist blade popping out from its wrist as it walked step by step towards Major Dutch. Unfortunately, as he approached the trap, an iron blood metal net suddenly sprang out, tightly restricting his movements. Die! Billy, seizing the opportunity, pulled out the iron blood spear from the ground and violently pierced his head. Thud! The predator stopped struggling and fell to the ground. Major Dutch also breathed a sigh of relief, but the other predator had already recovered, and a red light swept towards them. However, what the predator didn't notice was that countless black iron filings suddenly poured into the shoulder cannon, completely blocking its opening. With a boom, the iron blood shoulder cannon suddenly backfired, erupting in blue plasma energy and rapidly melting his entire shoulder. Now, after the shoulder cannon backfired, Chen Mo rushed out from the forest, raising his iron blood spear and piercing the predator's heart. That's right, Chen Mo had been looking for an opportunity here, and before the predator attacked, he controlled many metal particles to block the shoulder cannon. After all, Chen Mo's storage space no longer had high-powered missiles, so rather than alerting the enemy, a sneak attack would be smoother. Ding! Mission completed in this world. Overall rating is D grade. The host can choose to return to the main world immediately, or automatically return after 3 days. Ding! This world's rewards have been issued and can be claimed at any time after the mission ends. Ding! The next plot world, The game, Resident Evil 2, will open in half a month. Please prepare, host. Phew, the mission is finally over, Chenmo said, panting heavily as he heard the mechanical voice in his mind. However, Chenmo knew exactly why the system's evaluation was D-grade. After all, he had been constantly sneaking and using cheats to eliminate those dangerous hunters. After Chenmo dealt with the predator, Major Dutch and Billy's faces lit up with joy, and they stumbled over. That's great, you're still alive, Morpheus, Major Dutch said excitedly. Yes, we heard that loud bang and thought you were. Billy also said, incredulously. It's great to see you all, everyone's alive, Chenmo said to them with a smile. They chatted for a while and then distributed the predator's equipment, but this time Chenmo only took the iron blood bomb, iron blood reactor, and most of the alloy armor fragments, leaving the rest to Major Dutch for him to report on the operation. Then let's all go to the helicopter rendezvous point, Major Dutch said to Chenmo, carrying the iron blood spear. Oh, ho, Morpheus, you can finally go home and get some good rest. However, Chenmo stopped in his tracks upon hearing their words and said to them gratefully, thank you, Major and Billy, it's with your help that I was able to survive in this world. Now it's time to say goodbye. As soon as Chenmo finished speaking, Billy and Major Dutch were stunned. Before they could ask what foolish words he was saying, they saw Chenmo enveloped in a white light, turning into specks of light and gradually disappearing before their eyes. Chapter 11. In Central City, in a private laboratory. As a sudden white light appeared, Chenmo's figure materialized in his laboratory, safely returning to the main world. Ding! Mission complete. You have returned to the main world. Full body repair for the host has begun. After Chenmo heard the system's voice, he felt as if he was basking in warm sunlight, and his injuries were rapidly recovering. Soon, apart from some minor damage to his clothes, there were no scars. This is great, it's practically a replica of the main god. This way, the chances of survival will be much higher. Chenmo moved his body, feeling abundant physical strength, and said in surprise. Ding! X01 power armor has been issued. The host can perform one permanent enhancement upgrade at any time. As soon as the system's voice fell, a silver-white power armor, approximately 3 meters tall, appeared out of thin air in front of him. Simultaneously, the method of piloting the power armor and how to add tactical plugins appeared in his mind. The only drawback was the lack of high-tech weapons from the wasteland. The streamlined body, the menacing face, the design full of violent aesthetics, combined with the strong wasteland aura, made Chenmo utterly captivated. One enhancement upgrade. Chenmo snapped back to reality and his eyes lit up when he heard this sentence. However, upon hearing, one upgrade, Chenmo asked with some uncertainty, is there only one chance for a permanent enhancement? Yes, only one. Of course, if you want to upgrade again, the host can modify it themselves. The system's answer was simple and quick, resolving Chenmo's question. All right then, help me upgrade it directly. Chenmo thought for a moment and waved his hand, only to see 2 largely complete iron blood sets fall from his storage space. Ding! 2 iron blood sets detected. Enhancement upgrade beginning. The X01 power armor and the iron blood set instantly transformed into countless molecules, dissipating into the air and reassembling. A minute later, a set of power armor combining styles from 2 different worlds reappeared in front of Chenmo. Ding! Successfully upgraded X01 power armor to X01 iron blood armor. Includes iron blood nuclear fusion reactor, iron blood spear, iron blood wrist blade, metal throwing net, small radar detector, optical stealth system, thermal sensing system, iron blood shoulder cannon can be fired from both palms. The enhanced and upgraded iron blood power armor was somewhat similar to the anti-Hulk armor, but its weapon system was more than 10 times greater than the latter, so even if the next world was Resident Evil, he wouldn't have to worry too much. It's finally done. Now, the next step is to determine the flow of time. Chenmo put away his new iron blood armor, turned his head to look at the wall clock in the laboratory, wanting to see the change in time flow to facilitate his next plan. The wall clock showed the time was 12:02 a.m., meaning that the 2 days he spent in the Predator world were equivalent to 2 minutes in the main world. This way, basically no one would discover his abnormality. There is indeed a difference in time flow, but time in the main world cannot be wasted either. Chenmo thought of the game world of Resident Evil, which he would traverse in half a month, and wanted to make use of this time. Moreover, since he had come to Central City, seeking help from STAR Labs to strengthen his control over electromagnetic abilities seemed like a good idea. After clarifying his subsequent plans, Chen Mo replenished his storage space with a batch of heavy weapons. Then he left the laboratory and went to a high-end villa arranged by Miles at the company. After enjoying a delicious meal, he fell into a deep sleep. Early the next morning, Chen Mo gathered all the scientists and researchers from the laboratory and brought them to the warehouse where he had previously stored the Iron Blood armor. Upon discovering the Iron Blood armor, everyone was momentarily stunned, but then immediately became excited. Oh my God, Mr. Morpheus, where did this armor come from? The technology it contains is truly advanced. Dr. Lewis Stone, the weapons expert, quickly examined it, occasionally tapping the armor's outer shell, and exclaimed, "This is a trade secret. You have no right to know. I called you here because I have something for you to do." Chen Mo slowly walked over and said with utmost seriousness, "What is it? If it's about adding weapons, I can guarantee you'll be satisfied." Dr. Lewis said confidently, "You're right. It's to have you help me install those powerful weapons. You can decide how, but the power must be great enough." Chen Mo smiled slightly and nodded. "So, how long do we have to modify it?" Dr. Lewis asked eagerly. 14 days. That's my absolute deadline. During this process, you can record the armor's data and power system to facilitate your creation of new weapons. Chen Mo thought for a moment and said seriously, "Okay, no problem, Mr. Morpheus. You will witness the capabilities of the best weapon designers," Lewis said decisively. Chen Mo nodded and left the laboratory. However, after Chen Mo left, the researchers seemed to receive some kind of command, and according to their respective duties, they began to analyze the Iron Blood power armor. Speaking of which, Cybertron Company has many weapon designers, especially Dr. Lewis in front of him, who is one of the best, even proposing the idea of creating liquid metal robots. They were his own people, which was also the reason Chen Mo confidently handed the armor over to them. After all, only professionals can make professional modifications. The most important point was that Chen Mo's current technological strength was insufficient, and he could only rely on his team to analyze it. He believed that Chen Mo would eventually fully grasp the technology plundered from other worlds. So, next, it's time to visit Flash and Harris Wells. After leaving the laboratory, Chen Mo showed a slight smile towards the direction of STAR Labs and slowly walked towards it. After experiencing a bizarre journey, Chen Mo became even more interested in the origin of the Myriad Worlds system. The Myriad Worlds system was quite mysterious, and Chen Mo did not know its origin, but he had a rough guess. It was possible that some god organization unexpectedly chose him to experience these worlds. If he could pass these trials, he could find the ultimate answer. If he failed, he would be completely buried like a grain of sand in the dust. However, Chen Mo also knew that thinking about these things now was useless. It was better to live well and make himself stronger. Moreover, traversing other worlds was not necessarily a bad thing. Just like the X-01 power armor that was just upgraded and enhanced, it was also his guarantee of survival. Central City, a bustling commercial street. Chen Mo arrived here unhurriedly, and after eating a local famous snack, he headed to STAR Labs, the most famous laboratory in Central City. Ding dong. After pressing the doorbell, Chen Mo waited quietly. Although there were still many dangers after coming to Central City, it was relatively safer compared to New York City. At the very least, there was the Flash Barry Allen, the city's protector. Click. In less than 5 seconds, the laboratory's alloy door slowly opened, evidently indicating extremely strict security. Chen Mo looked up and smiled slightly at the surveillance camera at the entrance, then walked into the laboratory. It wasn't long before he met the other members of the Flash team. Inside the laboratory, Cisco Ramon, Harrison Wells, Barry Allen, and Caitlin were all there, looking surprised at the familiar yet strange person before them. "Wow, what a rare guest. Mr. Morpheus actually came to see us." Cisco walked over, extending his hand with a surprised expression. "Hello, Cisco, long time no see," Chen Mo said with a smile, shaking his hand. "It's great to see you, Mr. Morpheus. Thank you for your past financial support," Caitlin also said gratefully to Chen Mo. Barry, standing beside them, didn't know what to say, only giving Chen Mo an awkward smile, quietly observing the mysterious person who had arrived. Harrison Wells, standing nearby, secretly glanced at him, and a hint of surprise suddenly appeared in his eyes. A week ago at the hospital, he had seen vigilance and wariness in the other person's eyes, but upon meeting again, he no longer sensed any emotion. Instead, a resolute aura emanated from him. However, Dr. Wells was only slightly surprised and didn't pay attention to Chen Mo's change. Because in his eyes, Flash was the most important. After Cisco and the others greeted him, Dr. Wells slowly wheeled his chair to Chen Mo's front. "Mr. Morpheus Chen, I imagine your visit here isn't merely to say hello, is it?" At this moment, Chen Mo also turned his head to gaze at Dr. Wells, or rather, Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, the speed professor from the 25th century. "That's right, Dr. Wells, I've come to ask you about something," Chen Mo politely explained to him. "On the day the particle accelerator exploded, I was struck by a blue lightning bolt. After 9 months of unconsciousness, I discovered I possessed a strange superpower." As Chen Mo spoke, he waved his hand, and countless metal objects in the laboratory slowly floated up, as if defying gravity. "Oh my god, that's so cool, you can control metal," Cisco exclaimed excitedly, sounding delighted. "No, to be precise, it's controlling magnetic fields. Controlling metal is just one way." Chen Mo shook his head, releasing his control over the magnetic field. "On the day the particle accelerator exploded, it produced a lot of dark energy, X-rays, and other unknown energies. Almost anyone hit by the energy would have superpowers. It seems Mr. Morpheus is one of them." Dr. Wells opened his computer and spent a few minutes pulling up the footage from the day the particle accelerator exploded. Then, the video showed Chen Mo in the stands, watching the particle accelerator activate and then explode, and then being directly struck by a blue lightning bolt. "It seems your situation was similar to mine that day. I didn't expect you were also struck by lightning," Barry said, a hint of surprise in his voice, after watching the recorded footage. Chen Mo nodded to Barry, then continued to Dr. Wells. "Dr. Wells, I hope you can help me enhance my control over my abilities." As soon as Chen Mo finished speaking, Cisco and Barry turned to look at Dr. Wells, wanting to see if he would agree. Because the metahumans created by the particle accelerator explosion were too dangerous, they had dealt with many such incidents recently, and they were afraid of creating an even more ambitious metahuman. "Mr. Morpheus, can you tell me why you have such a thought?" "Sometimes, greater power doesn't bring advantages, but rather trouble." Dr. Wells did not respond to Chen Mo's request, but instead asked a rhetorical question. Facing the doubts and confusion of Dr. Wells and Cisco, Chen Mo pondered for a moment and then knew how he should respond to them. "An organization of metahumans in New York City has targeted me. They sent a guy named Sylar, who can steal other people's superpowers, to hunt me down. I almost died at his hands then." Chen Mo recalled his previous encounters, saying with some heaviness, "I don't want to die, I just want to live, so that's why I came to Central City." "Sylar, is that the guy who almost took out Weather Wizard?" Barry's expression changed, and he spoke warily. "A week ago, Weather Wizard encountered a metahuman named Sylar, and after only a few skirmishes, he was caught by Sylar and almost had his head cut open." A metahuman organization. Dr. Wells thought about his future memories, then said solemnly to Chen Mo, "We can help you enhance your control over your abilities, but we hope you use them responsibly." No problem," Chen Mo nodded, stating with certainty. After receiving Dr. Wells's approval, biologist Caitlin began analyzing Chen Mo's blood, and the results were obtained an hour later. "Incredible, every cell in Mr. Morpheus is like a miniature electromagnetic force field. It constantly resonates through magnetic fields, affecting other charged particles or charged matter in the material world, which is also the intermolecular force between molecules," Caitlin described to Chen Mo with some surprise. "Is that so? It seems like an amazing ability," Dr. Wells said with a smile. Although Dr. Wells said this, he inwardly looked down on all abilities other than Speed Force. After all, the potential of Speed Force was far greater than electromagnetic force. "Wait, since it's electromagnetic force, why don't we let Morpheus try to absorb electrical energy to enhance his superpower? After all, electricity and magnetism are inseparable. Electricity generates magnetism, and magnetism generates electricity, and their mutual effects are quite significant." Cisco, on the side, analyzed Chen Mo's ability and made a bold conjecture. I think it's worth a try too," Chen Mo said, his eyes lighting up. "Speaking of which, coming to STAR. Labs was a smart choice, otherwise I might have ended up like Magneto, just simply manipulating metal. STAR. Labs, a laboratory area. Chen Mo and Cisco arrived here, only to see an oval-shaped electromagnetic force coil placed in the center, constantly emitting faint currents. Cisco, what is this thing? Chen Mo asked curiously, pointing at the instrument in front of him. It's a Tesla electromagnetic force coil. Its principle is to use a transformer to step up ordinary voltage, and then discharge through two coil poles from the discharge terminal. In simpler terms, it's an artificial lightning generator. Cisco tapped on the computer, adjusted the equipment, and explained with a smile. I remember it was proposed by Dr. Nikola Tesla, Chen Mo said, thinking for a moment, with certainty. Cisco just nodded at Chen Mo's words and began his work. The Tesla coil is composed of an induction coil, a transformer, a spark gap, two large capacitors, and an electromagnetic force coil mutual inductor. One of the coils is connected to the power source to transmit energy as a transmitter, while the other set of coils is connected to a light bulb or other objects, acting as an energy receiver. Okay, it's done. Morpheus, stand at the position of the other set of coils. I'll use a lower voltage first. Feel if you can absorb the electrical energy. Cisco pointed at the distant Tesla coil and said with certainty. Chen Mo had no objections and slowly moved to the position Cisco mentioned, calming himself to feel the changes in electricity and magnetism. Z's. He saw lightning flashing on the electromagnetic force coil, and a bolt of lightning suddenly struck his arm, as if connecting with the magnetic force within his body. Countless neurons also intertwined, frantically drawing energy from the lightning, surging into every cell of his body. The resonance of electricity and magnetism and electricity, gradually merged together. Chen Mo suddenly opened his eyes. He felt the energy of his superpower rapidly expanding, and countless electric snakes poured into his body from all directions. Beep, beep, beep. 3 hours later, accompanied by the alarm from the instrument, he looked at the nearly millions of volts displayed on the instrument, a hint of shock appearing on his face. Morpheus, stop. You can't absorb any more electrical energy, Cisco said to Chen Mo, somewhat nervously. As soon as Cisco finished speaking, the voltage began to slowly drop, and it had completely returned to normal in a short time. Phew, the taste of lightning is really good. Chen Mo opened his hand, and an electric snake was seen coiling around his palm, occasionally emitting crackling sounds. It looks like you're a giant biological battery, charging yourself, Cisco couldn't help but quip. Yes, after absorbing electrical energy, my ability is no longer limited to just controlling metal, Chen Mo said with a smile. Then, while retracting the lightning in his hand, he floated using magnetic force, appearing as if he had lost gravity. As expected of one of the four fundamental forces, its potential is truly immense, Cisco said with some emotion. After Chen Mo demonstrated his new abilities, Caitlin and Barry Allen walked in, their faces excited as if they wanted to ask something. That's really great, it looks like you're the embodiment of lightning. Barry said teasingly, golden electrical arcs flashing in his eyes. However, Chen Mo just shook his head when he heard this, stating with certainty, the true embodiment of lightning is Flash, he is Central City's hero. When Chen Mo mentioned Flash, Barry Allen became a little embarrassed, developing a greater fondness for Chen Mo. However, Barry did not reveal his secret of being Flash. He wouldn't disclose any secrets to a stranger he was meeting for the first time. In fact, Chen Mo came here to get acquainted with Flash, perhaps Flash could help him later. At this moment, Dr. Wells also wheeled himself in, and seeing their lively conversation, he gently reminded them. Then let's begin the test for Mr. Morpheus. Caitlin and Cisco, prepare all the necessary equipment, Dr. Wells said seriously. Understood. Got it. Both of them quickly responded. Soon, everyone appeared in a shooting range, but instead of handguns, there were more than a dozen metal conical projectiles. Next to them were high-speed cameras and various instruments to record Chen Mo's data. Doctor, how do I improve my ability? Chen Mo turned to Dr. Wells and asked. Currently, given your abilities, you can only use metal as a weapon for now. Lightning is clearly insufficient for telekinesis attacks, so I think we can enhance your control over metal. Dr. Wells calmly analyzed, causing Chen Mo to nod slightly. In front of you are bullets made of various materials, including manganese steel alloy, titanium aluminum alloy, and tungsten steel alloy. You need to release them in a manner similar to an electromagnetic force cannon. Dr. Wells pointed at the target and said sternly. Oh my goodness, Doctor, you're amazing. This way, we can demonstrate the legendary electromagnetic force cannon, Cisco also said with interest. Theoretically, an electromagnetic force cannon attack is very powerful. It is indeed suitable for your attack style, Morpheus, Caitlin also said with satisfaction. Okay, I'll give it a try. Chen Mo nodded, picked up a projectile with his fingers, and then a huge electromagnetic force surged from his hand. While Chen Mo was conducting the test, Barry and Dr. Wells stayed far away, wanting to see Chen Mo's abilities. With a whoosh, carrying incredibly powerful kinetic energy, it suddenly struck the target. The target that was hit instantly exploded into countless fragments, clearly containing immense energy. The power is not bad. You can train more to enhance your strength. Dr. Wells nodded slightly, affirming Chen Mo's strength. Okay, thank you, Dr. Wells. Chen Mo also showed a slight smile and said gratefully. I hope you can also become a hero like Flash, Cisco said teasingly from the side. Since you control magnetism, how about calling you Magneto? Caitlin also said jokingly. However, Chen Mo just gave an awkward smile at their words, not having such thoughts in his mind. Another point is that although the future Reverse Flash is indeed very dangerous, for now, he is a mentor who can help Chen Mo grow rapidly. Of course, Chen Mo also knew that he could get help from STAR Labs mostly because of his previous identity, otherwise, it would probably be impossible to get their help. It was morning in Central City, inside Chen Mo's private villa. As the warm sunlight filled the entire bedroom, Chen Mo slowly opened his eyes, habitually stretched, and patted his still drowsy face. Chen Mo opened the villa's window, admiring the peaceful Central City. Here, there were no attacks from Sarah, no pursuit from predators, everything was so beautiful. Although Central City had some undercurrents after the particle accelerator explosion, with the appearance of the Flash, those superpowered individuals who popped up would all be dealt with by the Flash. Another beautiful day, Chen Mo murmured to himself. Then, Chen Mo unhurriedly put on his clothes, went to the kitchen to heat a cup of high-quality Blue Mountain coffee, and sat on a chair on the balcony, pondering recent events. Ever since he received help from STAR Labs, he spent a week there learning how to better control his abilities, and could be considered to have initially mastered them. Moreover, in about a week, Chen Mo would enter the second world, the game, Resident Evil 2, so he had to make himself as strong as possible. Then, Chen Mo, as usual, took a car, bought several breakfasts, and arrived at STAR Labs. Morpheus, I didn't expect you to be here so early, Cisco said enthusiastically upon entering the laboratory. It's all right, thanks to your help during this time. If you need funding, I can provide it to you. Chen Mo smiled at Cisco and handed him the breakfast. After Cisco took the breakfast, he distributed it to Dr. Wells and Caitlin. Caitlin's eyes lit up when she heard him mention funding, and she said, if it's funding, we don't mind having more. That way, we can research superpowers more thoroughly. Dr. Wells, on the side, had a serious expression, and said with some self-reproach, perhaps we shouldn't have activated the particle accelerator, otherwise there wouldn't be so many metahumans. No, Wells, scientific progress comes with setbacks. There's nothing wrong with that in itself, Cisco also shook his head and said. No, Doctor, we are for science, for the future. The particle accelerator explosion was just an accident. Caitlin quickly tried to persuade Dr. Wells, who was blaming himself. Chen Mo, who was beside them, knew Dr. Wells' true identity, but he had no intention of exposing him. Besides, it was unlikely anyone would believe him, and he would only provoke a supervillain. After all, in this world full of crises, he shouldn't easily provoke those guys before he became strong. Then, Chen Mo seemed to recall something, and he looked up and asked Cisco. Cisco, I heard Barry say a few days ago that the metahuman prison here seems to be holding a metahuman who controls the weather. Chen Mo pondered, speaking with confusion. As soon as he finished speaking, Cisco nodded in response, that's right, the Flash sent him to us. Oh, can I go see that guy? Chen Mo asked with curiosity. Upon hearing him, Cisco said without hesitation, okay, he's beneath the particle accelerator. We can go together. Chen Mo thought of that guy from the first season of The Flash, who had grand ambitions but a fragile life, and showed a hint of interest. Speaking of which, two metahumans had recently appeared in Central City, Weather Wizard Clyde Martin and the multiplex Danton Black. The multiplex fell to his death while confronting the Flash. The weather wizard fared a bit better, having been imprisoned at STAR Labs until now, which was a better outcome than in the first season of The Flash. Before long, they arrived at a prison made entirely of special metal, where they saw the weather wizard, a man with golden messy hair, looking at them with an arrogant expression. "You ants, quickly let me go." Clyde Martin stood up and roared at them. "It seems he can't use his abilities," Chenmo said thoughtfully. "Of course, it can completely restrict superpowers inside, and his abilities are very dangerous, manipulating various natural forces like lightning, hail, and torrential rain," Cisco smiled and patiently explained to Chenmo. "Very good. In that case, those dangerous metahumans have no chance of escaping at all," Chenmo nodded and said. "Haha, that's natural. Maybe we'll need your help in the future too. After all, you're Magneto," Cisco said teasingly. Cough cough. "Cisco, you'd better not joke around. That title doesn't suit me." Chenmo quickly waved his hand, thinking of Magneto from the Marvel world, and said somewhat strangely. Meanwhile, on the other side, at Hearst Corporation in New York City, the blonde woman Angela and the bespectacled man Noah were discussing the company's recently assigned tasks. "Angela, the company's mission has been issued. Angela has ordered us to avoid conflict with that guy and to establish a cooperative relationship as much as possible, then build a laboratory in Central City." Noah pushed up his glasses, saying with surprise, "Oh, that's within my expectations. I'm also very interested in this metahuman," Angela smiled and said with interest. "I've thought of a good idea. Are you interested in hearing it?" A hint of a wicked smile appeared in Noah's eyes as he spoke meaningfully to Angela. "HMPH, what bad idea do you have now?" "The other party is a metahuman who controls two abilities," Angela frowned and said discontentedly. "Yes, when Chenmo fought Sarah, they thought Chenmo's storage space ability was another superpower, which was why Angela Perry took him seriously. My idea is to send Sarah to Central City to release the weather wizard. The two of them should be able to teach that kid a lesson. This way, Sarah can get revenge, and we can show our strength to make him agree to our demands." "But what if he dies?" Angela retorted with some uncertainty. "He won't. He's not a useless person who only relies on his abilities. Since he was able to retreat unscathed in front of Sarah, that's enough to prove he's a smart person," Noah said with absolute certainty. "But how can Sarah open STAR Labs, various defense facilities? You know that laboratory is one of the few places with the most advanced technology." Angela was also somewhat puzzled, wondering why Noah would have such an idea. "Haha, you don't have to worry about that. Sarah naturally has a way to do it," Noah said proudly. "Okay, but we must watch from the side. After all, we need his power," Angela said thoughtfully. "Good, then I agree to your request," Noah also said without hesitation. Central City, STAR Labs, at noon. Cisco, as usual, was alone in the laboratory, leisurely typing on his computer. He meticulously analyzed the curve graph of Chenmo's power index, a slight smile appearing on his face. During this time, with the help of Dr. Wells and others, Chenmo's superpowers had become increasingly proficient. He could even gradually lift hundreds of tons of objects using his telekinesis. However, what they didn't know was that half of Chenmo's strength lay in high-tech weapons. If the laboratory completed the modification of the Iron Blood Armor X-01, then with its formidable alien technology, ordinary dangers would truly be nothing. Ding dong. Just as Cisco finished his work, he heard a chime. He looked up and saw Chenmo at the door, gently waving at the monitor. "Oh, it's Morpheus. Isn't he training with Dr. Wells and the others?" Cisco's face showed some confusion. After a moment of thought, he still opened the door. After the laboratory door opened, Chenmo slowly walked in, but upon closer inspection, one would notice his eyes were filled with chilling coldness, looking at Cisco as if he were a stranger. "Hi, Morpheus, why are you here? Where are Dr. Wells and the others?" Cisco walked over and asked, puzzled. "They have their own work, and your task is to open the metahuman prison for me and release Weather Wizard," Chenmo said indifferently. At this moment, Cisco also noticed the strangeness of this familiar person. His face suddenly changed, and he quickly picked up the pistol on the table. But before he could even aim, an invisible force locked his throat. "Who are you?" Cisco said furiously after his movements were restrained. "Haha, the people at STAR Labs are truly formidable. If it weren't for taking advantage of this time, I wouldn't have had the chance to release Weather Wizard. Sylar deactivated his ability, revealing his true appearance. It's you, Sylar, what do you want? Cisco looked at Sylar, his heart startled, and said with some apprehension. Ah, that's a good question. Of course, I want revenge, to steal Morpheus Chen's powers, Sylar said with cold eyes. Speaking of which, Sylar had recently plundered several abilities, the ability to change appearance, super hearing, precognition, and ice manipulation. Therefore, he was confident in achieving his revenge. HMPH, I won't help you release that guy, Cisco said firmly in response to Sylar's demand. No, you will, otherwise, I'll turn into you and kill Harrison Wells. Sylar said with a hint of threat, clearly having Cisco in his grasp. Indeed, when Cisco heard Sylar's plan, his face turned ugly. He hesitated for a full 5 minutes before saying somewhat fiercely, I agree to your demand. After weighing the pros and cons, Cisco ultimately chose to protect Dr. Wells, the scientist he respected. Very good, a smart choice, Sylar said, satisfied. In fact, all of this was within Sylar's plan. Because in the American TV series Heroes, Sylar's intelligence was much stronger than that of ordinary villains, he could always grasp the opponent's weakness. Under Sylar's threat, Cisco still released Weather Wizard Clyde Martin. After Weather Wizard walked out of the metahuman prison, he looked at Sylar in front of him with some wariness. Let's go. Come with me to find that guy, Sylar said coldly to Weather Wizard in a commanding tone. As soon as Sylar finished speaking, Weather Wizard took a step back and sneered, Sylar, why do you think I'll definitely listen to you? Haha, of course, I'll use this to make you obey my command, Sylar said, clenching his fist tightly. Facing the tense atmosphere, Cisco quickly hid to the side and called Chen Mo and Flash, seeking backup. After provoking Sylar, Weather Wizard instantly gathered several bolts of lightning and struck him, simultaneously releasing a thick fog to hide his figure and find a way to escape. However, Sylar showed no fear in the face of Weather Wizard's attack. He only saw an invisible telekinesis block Weather Wizard's lightning. Immediately after, a burst of cold air quickly froze the dense fog. Immediately after, before Weather Wizard could even leave STAR Labs, he was once again caught by telekinesis, with no room to resist, just like last time. Haha, you still haven't learned your lesson. It seems I should give you a profound one. When Sylar caught Weather Wizard again, he gently raised his finger and slowly moved it. As his finger moved, a deep bloody mark appeared on Weather Wizard's forehead. The intense pain stimulated Weather Wizard to make his choice. Enough, I agree to your demand, please let me go. Weather Wizard pleaded with Sylar. Facing the hunter before him, he had no room to resist at all. Very good, Sylar nodded, satisfied with Weather Wizard's attitude. Then, before they had walked far from the laboratory, a red afterimage suddenly appeared, blocking their path. Game over, you two should go back, Barry said seriously, gazing at Sylar and Weather Wizard. Flash, if you leave now, I can overlook this, Sylar said, frowning as he looked at Barry Allen. HMPH, Flash, you actually dare to meddle, Weather Wizard said with a twisted expression after Barry appeared. Central City is my territory, I have an obligation to protect it, Barry said firmly in the face of the two enemies' threats. After realizing that combat was unavoidable, Weather Wizard immediately manipulated the dense fog to envelop the entire street. In the vast white mist, Flash also felt something was amiss. He knew this environment was not suitable for a speedster to fight. In the swirling mist, a bolt of lightning suddenly struck towards him, but Barry also sensed the danger and immediately used the speed force to dodge it. However, before Barry could relax his guard, countless invisible blades struck him, leaving his body covered in wounds. Then, from the dense mist, Sylar and Weather Wizard slowly walked over, and seeing the injured Flash, they couldn't help but reveal a slight smile. HMPH, so the famous Flash is actually so weak. Weather Wizard said with a triumphant smile, looking at the injured Flash. Be careful, our true enemy hasn't arrived yet. I briefly saw what would happen in the future through another ability. Sylar was not as relaxed as Weather Wizard, instead, he spoke with greater vigilance. Near STAR Labs, in a certain block. As the Flash and the two metahumans battled, causing massive destruction, the surrounding citizens quietly returned to their homes, avoiding entanglement in the crisis. Flash, if this is all you've got, then your power will be mine. In the thick fog, Sarah glanced indifferently at the injured Flash, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. In Sarah's original impression, Flash's combat awareness shouldn't have been that poor. After all, Flash had used a supersonic punch to send him flying last time. However, Sarah was unaware that Flash Team was assisting Flash. Huff, huff. At this moment, Flash no longer had the strength to respond to Sarah's words, only managing to half kneel on the ground, gasping loudly. Ha ha ha, Sarah, kill him. Only we can possess the power of a god. Weather Wizard said cruelly, clearly intoxicated by power. Sarah nodded expressionlessly and gently raised his hand. Instantly, an invisible force bound Flash, just as he was about to use his finger to slice open Barry's head. A whistling sound, tearing through the air, suddenly came, making Weather Wizard and Sarah simultaneously sense a deadly crisis. Looking up, Sarah saw a rocket flying towards him, which suddenly exploded with a flash of fire in the air, and a massive flame and shockwave rapidly swept towards him. Suddenly, just as Flash was wondering, a familiar figure abruptly grabbed him and ran backward. Morpheus, it's actually you. Barry looked at the figure before him in surprise after running dozens of meters. I also didn't expect Barry Allen to be the Flash. Alright, now you immediately go to STAR Labs for treatment. Leave the rest to me. Chen Mo heard Barry's voice, feigning surprise as he spoke, and made his arrangements. However, no sooner had Chen Mo finished speaking than Barry shook his head in objection. No, they are very strong, you are not his match. Haha, I don't think so. I also want to test the results of my efforts during this period. Chen Mo revealed a confident smile, patted Barry's shoulder, and then ran towards the smoke-filled area. Trust him, Barry, what you need now is treatment. As Barry hesitated, Cisco, who had arrived, comforted him. Barry nodded reluctantly after hearing Cisco's words. On the way back, a strong magnetic field gradually formed around Chen Mo, even occasionally flashing with blue currents. Through the resonance between cells, his aura continued to rise steadily. Through Dr. Wells's research during this period, Chen Mo could already skillfully use electromagnetic force. Now, he could not only control metal but also control electrical energy. After the distant smoke gradually dissipated, only the extremely disheveled Weather Wizard and the wary Sarah were seen, gravely looking at him. You foolish mortal, go to hell. Clyde Martin furiously manipulated several bolts of lightning, striking fiercely towards him. However, as those lightning bolts approached Chen Mo, they were swallowed by an invisible magnetic field, as if they had never appeared. Oh, not bad. For controlling the weather, your power is indeed very strong. Chen Mo sensed the electrical energy converted by the magnetic field, saying casually. It's really you, you've become stronger, completely different from before. Sarah, on the side, looked at Chen Mo with apprehension. The guy in front of him was simply a different person compared to before. Enough nonsense, if you want my abilities, come and get them. Chen Mo sneered at Sarah and Weather Wizard, provoking them. As expected, upon hearing these words, Weather Wizard was the first to be enraged, manipulating a thick fog to envelop the area and controlling countless wind blades to attack him. After Weather Wizard made his move, Sarah also used telekinesis to lock onto Chen Mo's position, preventing him from escaping the attack range. To their surprise, several Gatling Vulcan cannons with long ammunition belts and dozens of rockets suddenly appeared in front of Chen Mo, unleashing a rain-like barrage of firepower in an instant. Da da da. Boom. 6,000 rounds per minute, a curtain of bullets like scattered flowers, coupled with the deadly crisis carried by the rockets, startled them, and they quickly used their powers to defend themselves. Naturally, their initial combined attack ended in failure, and the initiative returned to Chen Mo's hands. Indeed, facing those heavy weapons, even metahumans cannot resist them head-on. Chen Mo was still satisfied with temporarily suppressing Sarah and them. Actually, Chen Mo would definitely not compete with them in superpowers like a primitive man. At least in this environment, a fair duel was out of the question. If it weren't for the Iron Blood armor not yet being fully modified, and if it weren't for the Iron Blood dagger's excessive power, Chen Mo would certainly not mind sending them flying. In his eyes, the combination of high technology and special abilities was the most perfect attack method. After all, in X-Men, Days of Future Past, weren't mutants almost exterminated by Sentinel robots? In fact, Weather Wizard and Sarah already felt like they had been screwed over. It was supposed to be a duel, but they were firmly suppressed by various heavy weapons. During the defense, Sarah and Weather Wizard also separately enhanced their telekinesis and tornado airflow, blocking the even denser barrage in front of them. Immediately after, Chen Mo was seen taking out a tungsten steel alloy bullet, and a blue electromagnetic force surged from his hand. Instantly, the projectile, carrying immense potential energy, shot towards Weather Wizard's position. With a whoosh, the 4 times supersonic electromagnetic cannon struck their protective shield fiercely in less than 0.01 seconds. Boom! The immense kinetic energy caused a violent explosion, tearing apart their defenses, and the powerful impact caused Weather Wizard and Sarah to suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood. As the thick mist gradually dispersed, Chen Mo seized the opportunity to use the resonance of electromagnetic force to activate the cells throughout his body, transforming into an afterimage and punching Sarah flying. Then, before Weather Wizard could even react, a silver-white iron blood dagger pierced his abdomen. Cough, cough, please let me go, I didn't mean to become your enemy. Weather Wizard felt the loss of life and immediately begged Chen Mo for mercy. Haha, unfortunately, I am merciless towards enemies. Chen Mo pulled out the iron blood dagger and swiftly pierced Weather Wizard's heart. If Chen Mo hadn't played a trick this time, catching them off guard with a pile of heavy weapons, it might have been him who died. On the streets of Central City, just after Chen Mo had dealt with the Weather Wizard, a minivan suddenly drove up from not far away, blocking his path. The minivan's timely appearance proved that someone had been monitoring their battle, and Chen Mo had a rough guess as to who it was. When the minivan opened, 2 men and 1 woman pulled open the car door. The leader was Noah, the bespectacled man, and the blonde electric woman, Elle, with a black man with an expressionless face behind them. It's you, from that company. Chen Mo's expression grew colder, and several Vulcan cannons re-aimed at them. Haha, I didn't expect Mr. Morpheus to know us. Noah squinted, greeting him like an old friend he hadn't seen in years. HMPH, are you trying to stop me from killing Sylar? Chen Mo frowned, raising his iron blood dagger to question them. Yes, he is still useful to the company, and we hope you can let him go. You have great potential, and we hope to cooperate with you. Noah smiled and turned to wink at the black man next to him. Instantly, Chen Mo felt the black man release an invisible force that rapidly weakened his electromagnetic field, causing the suspended Vulcan cannons to fall powerlessly to the ground. A Haitian, it seems you value me greatly, Chen Mo said with a hint of surprise, sensing the weakening in the remaining 1/10 of his power. That's right, the Haitian is the ability user from the American drama Heroes who can nullify superpowers. Almost any ability user's powers are weakened to varying degrees when they get close to him. Hee, of course we value you. After all, you're the first person to defeat Sylar twice in a row, Elle explained with a giggle, her eyes sparkling. Oh, it seems if I had failed the first time, I would have become Sylar's nourishment. Chen Mo said with a dangerous smile on his face, self-deprecatingly. Thinking carefully about the plot of Heroes, Sylar had just become a predator at this time, which is why Hearst Corporation kept looking for ability users to allow Sylar to constantly acquire new abilities. Exactly, your survival proves your potential, Noah said with a smile, showing no guilt whatsoever. Speaking of which, Chen Mo becoming a target for Sylar and the company could only be blamed on his own weakness. As a weakling, he naturally had no right to choose. So, after learning the truth, Chen Mo's desire to become stronger intensified. Only by becoming strong could he control his own destiny. After Noah finished speaking, the atmosphere in the scene solidified, and Elle and Noah looked at Chen Mo with some anticipation, waiting for his choice. Moreover, Flash had already been injured, so they weren't afraid of Barry Allen coming to disrupt things. Cooperation is naturally possible. I can assist you with some things within my capabilities. After a moment of thought, Chen Mo agreed to their request. He also knew that he had to back down when necessary, and it was better to lie low before fully rising. Indeed, after Chen Mo agreed to their request, Noah showed a benevolent smile and said, "Very good, Mr. Morpheus is indeed a smart man, cooperation is the best method. And since Cybertron Company is behind you, we also don't want to provoke a force with a military background. Since you've agreed to cooperate with us, then I'll be your partner. By the way, my name is Elle, and my superpower is controlling electricity." Elle, standing next to him, extended her hand to Chen Mo with a friendly smile. Chen Mo politely shook her hand, responding with a feigned smile, though he knew Elle was there to monitor him. However, Chen Mo didn't care at all. as long as he obtained sufficiently powerful black technology or items from other worlds, the company's threat would be negligible. Alright, now that we've reached an agreement, let me explain our mission in Central City. Noah said seriously, remembering the company's mission. Chen Mo nodded, showing no objections, seemingly waiting for the other party to explain the mission. The particle accelerator explosion created a new batch of superpowered individuals, or rather, converts. The company is very interested in those superpowered individuals, and our mission is to collect their blood. You need to assist L in Central City with the research. Noah thought for a moment and then summarized it for Chen Mo. We will establish a laboratory in Central City and use the most advanced instruments to study the genes of those superpowered individuals. You just need to help us hunt them. L added, clearly they had planned this. All right, Chen Mo nodded in response. Then that's settled. I'll come find you in a week after the laboratory is built. After L finished speaking, she turned and left first with the injured Siler. Noah took the weather wizard's corpse and quickly followed L. Watching their retreating figures, Chen Mo's expression was devoid of emotion, but in his heart, he already knew what to do. Because temporarily cooperating with Hearst Corporation seemed to have no downsides, at least Siler wouldn't have another chance to bother him. Hey, from prey to hunter. Hearst Corporation is indeed not simple. It seems I also need to find an opportunity to establish a force. Chen Mo walked slowly, muttering to himself. Chen Mo had basically determined the members needed to establish a force. Peter Perry, the absorber, Claire, the cheerleader, Nakamura Hiroshi, the fat otaku with spatiotemporal power, Matt Parkman, who had telepathy, and Suresh, the geneticist. However, it wasn't time yet. The perfect opportunity to form a force would be after he returned from the game, Resident Evil 2. Another reason to recruit them was that Nakamura Hiroshi possessed the ability to travel through timelines, which meant he could completely use the other party's ability to go to the future and obtain complete Terminator technology. And that geneticist could help him research the virus brought back from Resident Evil. Even Peter Perry and Matt would be very useful and incredibly important to him. In fact, another reason Chen Mo agreed to cooperate with L and Noah was that he didn't want anyone to disrupt his plans before he had fully risen. After all, Hearst Corporation was a long-established superpower, possessing at least hundreds or even thousands of superpowered individuals, so with the power he currently controlled, it was certainly not enough to cope. Therefore, instead of offending a colossal organization, it was better to assist them without affecting his own interests, which would not be a significant loss for Chen Mo. After dealing with the crisis brought by Sella, Chen Mo had only about 3 days left. To ensure the smooth progress of the next world's mission, he decided to bid farewell to STAR Labs and return to his own laboratory. As usual, Chen Mo arrived at the laboratory early, but when he entered, he found that the atmosphere inside was a bit off. Also, there was a stranger next to Barry whom he didn't know. He only saw a burly middle-aged black man. Chen Mo thought for a moment and realized that he was Joe West, Barry's adoptive father. In the laboratory, Dr. Wells glanced at Chen Mo, who had just arrived, and said nothing. He just pushed his wheelchair and spoke to Barry with concern. Barry, your injuries have healed, right? Yes, I've basically recovered. After gaining superpowers, my cell's self-healing ability is very strong, Barry nodded and said with certainty. Barry, I think your self-healing cells will be of great help to future medicine. I hope you will assist us in scientific research in the future. Leave the matter of apprehending metahumans to others. Dr. Wells considered for a moment and said seriously. That's right, Barry, I think Dr. Wells is right. Let the police handle the apprehension of those metahumans. Joe also advised Barry. After watching the two converse with such perfect coordination, Chen Mo stood silently to the side, quietly acting as an observer, wanting to see what exactly was happening. However, Chen Mo also had a rough guess. Barry Allen being injured by Sella had caused Joe's dissatisfaction, so Joe might have secretly talked with Dr. Wells. As for why Dr. Wells agreed, it might have been a tactic of retreating to advance, wanting to strengthen Barry Allen's belief in becoming Flash. No, Joe, you don't understand the terror of those metahumans. Also, I want to protect Central City, just like Superman, Batman, or Green Arrow protect their cities. Barry shook his head and said with a strong sense of justice. No, you're just a young man lucky enough to be struck by lightning. Protecting Central City is not your responsibility. You are even less suited to be a hero. Can you imagine How lofty were the dreams I had when I wanted to usher in a new era. But, Dr. Wells paused, then roared at Barry Allen in an almost guttural voice. But I failed, the particle accelerator exploded, I lost all my dreams, and even my freedom, but you showed me new hope. Hope, how can I help? Barry asked Dr. Wells, his face showing confusion. Hidden in your genes are codes that can cure various diseases, which can be well applied in medicine and biotechnology, Dr. Wells explained with utmost seriousness. After Barry heard Dr. Wells' words, his firm resolve wavered slightly. Facing the person he was most close to and respected, he truly didn't know what to say. Barry, Dr. Wells is right. Joe saw the wavering in Barry's heart and continued to speak to him. However, Barry said nothing, just remained silent for a while, then stood up and said to them, "Sorry, I want to take a walk alone." As soon as Barry finished speaking, he transformed into a golden arc of electricity that streaked through the laboratory and vanished from their sight. After Barry disappeared, Chenmo knew that Barry had most likely gone to Shing City to find Green Arrow, but he didn't say anything unnecessary, he just slowly approached Dr. Wells. "Morpheus, is there something you want to tell me?" Dr. Wells looked at Chenmo as he approached and spoke to him gently. Chenmo nodded, not surprised by Dr. Wells' sudden change in demeanor, and simply said softly, "Dr. Wells, thank you for your help during this time. I will be leaving STAR Labs for a while. Morpheus, if you have time in the future, you can come to STAR Labs. It can help you." Dr. Wells wasn't surprised at all. After all, he had invited Chenmo to join STAR Labs yesterday, but he had politely declined. "I will." Chenmo also smiled and replied politely. "Wait, Morpheus, are you really not considering joining STAR Labs?" Cisco asked Chenmo with some regret. "Yes, I have my own work, and I will be very busy for a while." Chenmo thought of the second world he would travel to in the Hearst Corporation mission, and said with certainty, "By the way, if you're still in Central City, we might have some things that need your help," Caitlin said thoughtfully from the side. "Of course, I will always be in Central City. If any metahumans dare to cause trouble, I will deal with him for you," Chenmo smiled and said without hesitation. Then, after they talked for a while, Chenmo left STAR Labs and returned to his own laboratory. After Chenmo dealt with Weather Wizard yesterday, Cisco and Dr. Wells also asked Chenmo if he wanted to join STAR Labs and such, but he politely declined. Speaking of which, Chenmo couldn't waste too much time here. After all, he wanted to skillfully control his superpowers, not protect Central City. At the same time, just as Chenmo expected, in a building in Shing City, Green Arrow Oliver and Flash Barry met each other's gaze, as if communicating telepathically. "Barry, you seem to have something on your mind, can you tell me?" Green Arrow was silent for a moment, then asked Barry with confusion. There's something I want to ask you." Barry paused, then said somewhat dejectedly, "Dr. Wells and my adoptive father want me to give up the idea of protecting Central City, and they said I'm not suitable to be a hero." "No, I think you've got one thing wrong." Green Arrow's expression became serious, and he said earnestly. Barry also calmed down, patiently listening to Green Arrow's words. Green Arrow thought for a moment and said slowly, "Since you've already made up your mind, then do what you want. Protecting this world doesn't necessarily mean becoming a hero. Our world is constantly facing danger, you just need to be yourself. Since the lightning has given you extreme speed, then strengthen your belief and do your best to protect Central City." Barry's eyes lit up. At this moment, he felt a sudden enlightenment. The dark clouds that had accumulated in his heart had completely dispersed. "Thank you, Oliver," Barry said gratefully to Green Arrow. "Haha, it's nothing. After all, you are a new batch of superheroes reported by the Metropolis Daily Planet." Green Arrow also patted Barry's shoulder, encouragingly. Central City, Cybertron Company Weapon Research Institute. After Chenmo finished handling matters at STAR Labs, he immediately rushed back to the research institute and summoned the weapons scientist Louis Stone, wanting to see how his assigned tasks were progressing. In an office, Louis looked at Chenmo respectfully. Though his condition was not good, not only did he have dark circles under his eyes, but his expression was also filled with fatigue, as if he hadn't slept for a long time. As soon as Chenmo saw Louis, he knew he hadn't been slacking off. He had clearly been researching the power armor for a long time. "Louis, how is the modification of that armor coming along?" Chenmo asked seriously, seated upright in his chair. Lewis's eyes lit up with excitement when he heard Chen Mo's words. He pulled out a laptop, opened it, placed it on the table, and began to explain patiently. Yes, the modifications are basically complete. I've recorded all the weapons and performance data on the computer. Boss, you'll definitely be satisfied. Instantly, he saw a 3D holographic image of a silver white armor appear on the laptop, with detailed data for the entire iron blood armor recorded on it. Boss, it's incredible. This armor is actually made of an unknown alloy. Not only is it lightweight, but its defense is also extremely strong. It has an intelligent sensing system inside that can automatically adjust body temperature and the human respiratory system, and it has network connectivity and a small radar detector. Boss, where on earth did it come from? Lewis said, pointing at the iron blood armor with some shock. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. I naturally have my channels, Chen Mo reprimanded, his expression turning serious. All right, I understand, boss, Lewis said with disappointment. In fact, Chen Mo couldn't tell Lewis the origin of this armor, it wasn't necessary. All right, let me see what tactical plugins the iron blood armor has. If you do well, I'll give you more high-tech weapons to research, Chen Mo said with a confident smile. Lewis's face also lit up, and he responded solemnly. If Lewis satisfied him, perhaps the high-tech weapons obtained later could all be given to him for research, continuously enhancing his scientific research capabilities. Then, the holographic image of the iron blood armor changed, revealing various light and heavy weapons externally mounted on the armor's arms, shoulders, and back, truly resembling a mobile arsenal. This armor has a light machine gun in its left arm, containing 5,000 rounds, and its right arm is equipped with a 15mm rapid-fire grenade launcher with 100 rounds of ammunition. On both sides of the shoulders, there are externally mounted Gatling Vulcan cannons and rocket pods, and a huge ammunition box can be carried on the back, providing continuous fire support when necessary. The more Lewis spoke, the more excited he became. Seeing the intense interest in Chen Mo's expression, he knew his modifications were successful. So, can it fly, even if only for a short time? Chen Mo inquired seriously. Yes, there are rocket propulsion devices on the legs and back, which can allow this armor to reach a flight speed of 3 times the speed of sound, but it can only achieve a brief flight of 20 minutes. Lewis said with some regret, because with the technology they currently controlled, they simply couldn't make this heavy armor fly freely. Very good, Lewis, you've done an excellent job, and I'm very satisfied. You can go back and rest first, I'll give you some high-tech weapons to research later. Chen Mo said with a satisfied smile. Thank you, boss. If you have any requests, I'll be ready to do them anytime, Lewis also said happily. The iron blood armor, after Lewis's modifications and its inherent alien technology, was incredibly powerful, to the point where even causing a ruckus in the Resident Evil world didn't seem like a problem. It even made Chen Mo somewhat suspect whether Lewis was a follower of the multi-turret cult or the tech cult. An armor of this level could be called a mobile fortress. Moreover, it also made him realize that Lewis was a talent, and perhaps handing over the damaged 3 ironblood shoulder cannons to Lewis for repair would also be a good idea. Oh, right, give me all the data on the power system that you've reverse-engineered during this time. Suddenly, Chen Mo seemed to think of something, so he said to Lewis. Okay, Lewis readily agreed, clearly even more excited. Then, after receiving the reverse-engineered data, he immediately had his subordinates send these top-secret materials to New York City and hand them over to his friend Miles. He knew that this data should be of great help to Miles Dyson in researching the T-Series Terminator. Sure enough, more than half a day later, he received a call from Miles Dyson on his phone. Hey, Miles, what's up? Chen Mo pretended not to know, smiling as he spoke to Miles. My goodness, Morpheus, you're a true genius. Where did you get this data? It's critically helpful for our research into new intelligent weapons. Miles said with extreme fervor. After seeing this data, he felt as if he could see the achievements he would gain. Haha, as for where I got it, that's a secret. You just need to know that it's useful to you, Chen Mo smiled, not saying much more. Those reverse-engineered technologies couldn't be perfectly utilized in Chen Mo's hands. After all, he lacked a complete industrial system, so handing them over to Miles was the best choice. Since Morpheus, you don't want to say, I won't ask more. Just let me know if you need anything, Miles said affirmatively. Of course, I also happen to need you, Miles, to assign me a group of scientists in the fields of physics and artificial intelligence, and also give me a few T1 production lines, and a few of the company's most advanced supercomputers. Okay, no problem, Miles said, nodding slightly when he heard Chen Mo's words. His requests were nothing to Miles. Cybertron Company's rise hasn't been short, so naturally, the number of scientists is quite large, and assigning a group of scientists to Chen Mo is certainly not a problem. Next, the world Chen Mo was going to cross into was the game version of Resident Evil 2. Chen Mo had also considered some issues regarding this world, such as the high-tech items and goods that could be plundered from it. In the game version of Resident Evil, Chen Mo knew about things like the progenitor virus, T-virus, G-virus, as well as the artificial intelligence Honghu and bio-weapon technology, but acquiring them would still take some effort. After all, Chen Mo had a mission when entering that world and couldn't take everything, so he had to acquire as many good things as possible within a limited time. New York City, Perry Family Villa. Nathan, I hear you're running for election. I wish you success. Angela Perry exuded an air of grace and nobility as she encouraged her eldest son, Nathan Perry. All right, Mother. Nathan nodded slightly, speaking earnestly. By the way, how is Peter doing recently? Also, I heard someone named Suresh came looking for you. Angela seemed to recall something as she asked, puzzled. Oh, nothing. It's just that Peter has been a bit delusional lately, and as for that doctor, he just said some inexplicable things. Nathan's emotions showed no fluctuation as he casually explained. That's good then. Angela said, satisfied. Speaking of which, Hearst Corporation was originally founded by 12 superheroes, with Angela Perry and Arthur Perry as its helmsmen. After over 30 years of development, the executives in various industries were all superheroes under their command, and their influence was almost pervasive. That's why they made arrangements immediately when superheroes appeared in Central City. The new generation of the Perry family, Nathan Perry and Peter Perry, both possess powerful super abilities, though they are unaware of it themselves. As they were talking, Peter Perry had already found Suresh's address and knocked on the door. Creak. Suresh opened the door and found a young man standing outside. Hi, my name is Peter Perry, and I'm here to see Shantila Suresh. I'm very interested in what he said about the direction of human evolution. Peter held a book and spoke earnestly to Suresh. All right, come on in. Suresh nodded slightly. After Peter entered the room, Suresh poured him a cup of coffee and said with a hint of sadness, the Shantila Suresh you mentioned is my father, but he has passed away. I am his son, Dr. Mohinder Suresh. Oh, I'm sorry, Peter said apologetically after hearing Dr. Mohinder's words. It's nothing, Peter. What did you want to see my father about? Suresh nodded, asking with some confusion. Well, it's like this. Your father wrote a book about people having super abilities. I think I might be one of them, Peter said to Suresh, uncertainly. Super abilities. So, what super abilities do you have? Suresh asked curiously. Dr. Mohinder Suresh was a geneticist from Sindri, a renowned professor in the country, so he was very interested in the super abilities Peter mentioned. Flight and the ability to paint the future. My abilities seem to only work when I touch other superheroes. Peter thought for a moment, speaking with some uncertainty. So, you can't be sure if you have super abilities, Suresh said with a hint of disappointment. But I want to try. Are you interested in coming along? Peter pondered for a moment, then explained to Suresh. I can go with you to take a look. Suresh nodded, saying without hesitation. However, why don't you go to Central City? I heard there are superheroes there too. Suresh asked, somewhat puzzled. Central City can wait for a bit. After all, New York City is closer. Peter thought for a moment, stating with certainty. Suresh agreed. Soon, they arrived at the subway station and boarded the last train. By the way, what kind of super ability does that superhero you mentioned have? Suresh asked curiously. His ability is to paint the future. Peter thought for a moment and said softly. Sounds pretty good, but our world is too dangerous. Famine, overpopulation, and even dangerous super criminals have appeared. If you have those super abilities, try being a superhero. Suresh said with some disappointment, clearly not very satisfied with the current state of affairs. Suddenly, just as Peter was about to say something, the entire space-time seemed to be put on pause, as if bound by some unknown force. Standing in the dark subway tunnel, Peter, upon realizing he was the only one who could move, exclaimed in shock, "What's going on?" "Peter Perry, long time no see. You look good without a scar on your face." As Peter was searching for answers, he suddenly heard a voice from behind him. Turning around, he saw a figure dressed in a black bodysuit with a samurai sword on his back. "Who are you? I don't know you, and what is your purpose here?" Peter Perry asked cautiously after seeing the newcomer. "Yes, we don't know each other yet. My name is Nakamura Hiroshi, and I'm from 3 years in the future. I risked traveling through the temporal rift to come to this timeline. Strictly speaking, Skynet will initiate Judgment Day in 3 years, and our world will be destroyed then." Nakamura Hiroshi slowly walked over, speaking with a heavy tone. "Skynet, the future, the apocalypse," Peter Perry said, dumbfounded, as this was beyond his expectations. "That's right, Skynet will initiate Judgment Day in 3 years, and 3 billion humans will be eliminated then," Nakamura Hiroshi said with a heavy heart. "I don't have much time. I came back to the past because there's something I need you to do," Nakamura Hiroshi said with a serious expression. "What is it?" Peter also said seriously. "Go to Cybertron Company in Central City and find a man named Morpheus Chen. He is the leader of our future organization. Stop everything before Skynet is born, and save our world with him," Nakamura Hiroshi explained patiently as he spoke. "Can you tell me what exactly happened in the future?" Peter nodded slightly, asking solemnly. 3 years from now, nuclear war, Judgment Day, and the remnant superheroes forming a resistance." Nakamura Hiroshi said this with a hint of sadness. "But, I don't think I can do it," Peter responded with some lack of confidence. "No, you once told me that as long as there's a glimmer of hope to save the world, one should never give up. So, become the person we need you to be," Nakamura Hiroshi encouraged Peter Perry. After Nakamura Hiroshi finished speaking, he disappeared from Peter Perry's sight, and at the same time, the frozen space-time returned to normal. Peter, why did you run so far?" After space-time resumed, Suresh looked at Peter and asked curiously. "Just now, I met a man named Nakamura Hiroshi, and he told me about the future." Peter paused as he looked at Suresh, then continued, "Drive. Suresh, do you believe in the future? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos."